7 Sport welcomes you to Calder Park, Melbourne, the home of the Australian Grand Prix, for this exclusive telecast of the 1984 Super Series Final.
Welcome to Melbourne International Raceway, Calder Park. And believe me, you're in the right place to watch today's program, because if you think it looks cold and windy, you're right. There are 3 main events on the program. The 3rd round of the Australian Formula One Championship, the 3rd round of the Australian GT Championship, and the final of the $200,000 Super Series for standard production motor cars. With me today with expert comments, John Shepherd. Very miserable conditions for practice yesterday. John, what effect will they have on today's racing?
The effect on today's racing will probably be minimal, Evan, except from the point of view of where people will be starting on the grid. People who perhaps would have started up the front because they had a different tyre selection yesterday or weren't using brand new tyres on the series production cars, for instance, were disadvantaged. But most times you find that a bloke who's quick in the dry is quick in the wet as well.
Alfie Costanzo has to win today to keep alive his chances of being in contention for the national title in the Formula One, but he didn't do so well in practice.
No, he's position number 3 on the grid, which perhaps was something to do, as I said, with the wet conditions. But I think we'll see a good race from Alfie. He is a champion and he's proved it several times.
Action when we return to Melbourne International Raceway. And there are 2 heats to the Australian Super Series here at Melbourne International Raceway this afternoon. This is the first, 10 laps. Des Gibbs in the Mitsubishi Cordia was the surprise of practice. He's car 64. And Brian Sampson alongside him in a Starion. Then Brad Jones started next, also in 73, a Starion. John Giddings in a Nissan 280 ZX. Field of 18 in the race. $200,000 is the money for the series, making it the richest series in Australian motor racing history.
Very good too, the way this one happened. Even as you know, there was a shortage of Australian Touring Car Championship rounds, so the circuit's put on this race, and it's really made quite a difference to the performance of these vehicles.
If anyone thought that the Mitsubishi Starion was hard to beat, what do I think about the Cordia? There's Des Gibbs, who very late in the piece decided to have a go at this series. Was fastest in practice yesterday. He's leading the race after 1 lap. He's being pressed fairly hard by who else but Peter Fitzgerald, who practiced poorly in the wet yesterday and was back in 6th position, 3rd row of the grid. Fitzgerald now right behind Gibbs, but Gibbs still in the lead. And a couple of cars going off. Car number 4 is Gary Cook, just having a little bit of a nudging match with Alan. Was it Alan Bryce? No, it's not. It's one of the Starions, anyhow. No one has a little nudging match with Alan Bryce. It normally comes off best.
Come off too well if they do.
Gibbs then still leading the slightly larger Mitsubishi Turbo. What an unusual sight to see 2 cars in the same stable, both turbocharged, leading a race like this, with the smaller one leading the bigger one. And the new one in the pack of that. But this might just see what things are like. The Starion does have another 200 cc's, a little bit slower. Oh, that's the same one again. There's no doubt about it. Cook, when he does it once, decides he may as well do it again. And there's Fitzgerald going on the inside. Gibbs didn't like that. He was a bit out-general then. And it was a bit of sneaky tactics then by Fitzgerald to get on the inside. Gibbs aside, he'll have a go at the inside. They touch. There's a slight tail wag, rather, as a consequence. My heavens. Full marks to Gibbs for daring. He's going on the inside line. If he can hold it under braking, he'll have the line, and Fitzgerald will have to give way to him, because on the inside is the way to go, and he gets the line, and Fitzgerald has to be content with 3rd place. Brad Jones is 2nd place, rather. Brad Jones is 3rd behind, but Gibbs, who made his mark in Formula N, that is some of the older cars here, is really putting up a sensational first time here at Calder. And it's all Mitsubishis at the front of the field at the moment. In practice yesterday, the Japanese cars dominated because of the rather soft rubber they were using, all on Yokohama tyres, which just happened to be ideal for the sort of windy, wet, miserable conditions here. Fitzgerald deciding to go on the outside this time. I don't think it'll do him much good. Brad Jones coming on the inside to see what goes on among the 2. Fitzgerald going for a very daring line around the outside, but it might even have cost him 2nd spot, because Jones dives to that position, but Fitzgerald toughs it out on the outside. Gibbs toughs it out on the inside, and Jones decides he may as well make it a sandwich. Have you ever seen 3 cars closer than that? And it's Brian Sampson there trying to make it 4 cars if he can do what he wants to. Oh, Oh, that was close to taking the paint off. Look at the battle here. Fitzgerald squeezes his way on the inside of Gibbs. Gibbs holding on the second spot under challenge from Brad Jones, who's trying both sides. Not exactly at once, but you can be forgiven for thinking that because he had to go on either side in the same corner, which isn't bad. Fitzgerald in the lead, the place where we've seen him so much this year. Gibbs, though, in the smaller Mitsubishi, having a go. He's on the slightly better line there. Now he breaks away from the wind-assisted effect. He's going straight on the inside for the corner. He might get it, but on the outside, Fitzgerald comes. My heavens, they must be close to touching. That's a bad line for Fitzgerald, though. And Gibbs got knocked off there by Brad Jones, who came through and takes the lead. Fitzgerald cottons onto his tail to take second spot, and it's Brad Jones now leading the race.
Looking at this scrutineering bay this morning, Evan, to see if we could find one of these cars without any minor panel damage, and I didn't check them all, but there was more with than without, that's for sure.
Well, now we've seen Gibbs knocked back to fourth place, and I mean knocked back. He was actually physically pushed to one side there. No great damage, but he was shoved across the track. It's Jones leading Fitzgerald, and if you were a pedestrian, there'd be no room to walk between them. You'd want to be a quick pedestrian, mind you, look at that. A wide line there by Gibbs. Look also at Stephen Brook in car number 2, the Perrier BMW. He's made up a lot of ground to be just trailing this group. There's the typical BMW grille there, back in 5th place behind this whole string of Mitsubishis. Brad Jones leads now from Peter Fitzgerald. 2 Starions, 3 Starions, 5 laps covered, 5 to go. The race halfway through. If it keeps on like this, there'll be a lot of fast pulse rates around Calder today to compensate for the wind and the chilly conditions here. Jones now leads from Fitzgerald. Fitzgerald has won the series. He can't be beaten. He's amassed so many points in earlier races, but he'd like to finish on a triumphant note and not have to give second best to someone else, whether it be Brad Jones or Des Gibbs. In 3rd place behind this pair, battling about as close as you can get without becoming unfriendly, is Brian Sampson, who has featured so strongly. In fact, only 2 drivers have won races in the series. One's the man running second in car 3, Peter Fitzgerald, and the other is Brian Sampson. They've been the dominant drivers. Brad Jones would like to put an end to it all, and he's doing it the right way. He's leading. But bear in mind, the heats don't count for the points. There are 2 heats, each over 10 laps. Then we have a 20-lap final, and it's only in the final that the points really count.
A bit of smoke emitting from the back of Mr. Jones's car, a bit of wheel spin perhaps. It looked like it had actually locked the brake going into that bottom corner. It's interesting to watch him again and see whether he perhaps got a problem developing there.
Fitzgerald would love to have poked his nose out there and taken the corner. He might be playing a bit of a waiting game, and he can't wait too much because obviously Jones is going very fast. But he probably realises he only has one passing chance. He'll have one attempt, whether he tries it early and fails or whether he saves up for one last banzai effort. He's coming very close now. Corning just a little more tightly, has the inside line. He's a bit faster, 3 laps to go, that's all, 3 laps to go. And almost side by side now, definitely side by side. They go down the main straight here at Calder. Brian Sampson is following, watching the race, but has developed into this 2-car event, and Fitzgerald goes to the lead. That's his move. He did it by the way he came out of glow weave. He holds on, but Jones is right behind him. And now Jones determined to give Fitzgerald some of his own medicine back, but Fitzgerald pulls away a little bit. He has been the class driver of the series. So it would be fitting were he to win here today, but this, bear in mind, is only the first heat. Jones is just trying to push his nose into place there, but Fitzgerald has opened up maybe another half a car length from before. Now, can Jones hang on around these corners? This is where Fitzgerald is quick. And it's the way you come through this bend that determines how fast you are down the straight. Get it right and you're very quick. Get it wrong and you'll suffer for the rest of the 1.6 kilometre lap. Gibbs has dropped back to 4th place. That's Brian Sampson in 3rd. So it's Mitsubishi, 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 Mitsubishi. The Japanese must be rejoicing, to say nothing of Adelaide.
Yes, and another Japanese in whatever 5th place, but it's not another Mitsubishi.
No, that's John Giddings in the Nissan 280ZX. And a good effort back there, by the way. Car number 15, Gerard Murphy in the Alfetta. He had a poor practice yesterday and was right back on the grid in 13th spot. And look where he is now. He's just getting by car 6, or Giddings, I think it is. Car 8 probably. There's Gerard Murphy, head bent forward in concentration. He really has made up an enormous amount of ground. I think he's had to give too much of a start to the leaders, though, because you just can't compensate on a track as short and as tight as Calder for a poor practice position. And 13th spot on the grid made things very hard for Gerard Murphy, but a great drive by him. Fitzgerald, though, is back up there in the lead. Only 1 lap to go. This is the last lap. And the Pal Colour car with less than a mile to go at 1.5 kilometres under challenge again from Brad Jones, but I think Fitzgerald has this heat in his grasp. Takes the right line through there. He's not going to let Jones through, but what sensational driving we saw in those early laps. Jones wags the tail as he tries with desperation to stay on the tail of Fitzgerald. It's been a great drive by Jones, hasn't it, John Chip?
It has been very good, Evan. What you tend to find here in those early laps when there's a mad scramble on, the drivers aren't sitting back and driving as smoothly as they should, and they can stay together. But I think Peter Fitzgerald has got into the groove now, and he'll need to make a mistake for Brad to catch him. But Brad's done a very good job, and it's good to see a bit of close racing like this, because it's fairly boring watching a procession, as we all know.
Well, not a procession this time. Out comes the checkered flag, and it'll be for Peter Fitzgerald, the first heat. Fitzgerald wins. Brad Jones second. Brian Sampson in third spot. And the field pouring across the line. Car 64 gets fourth. That's Des Gibbs, who did so well and right on his tail. And let's applaud him for the effort, because he started so far back. Was Gerard Murphy in the Alfetta GTV, really the class drive of the event, but back there in, sixth place. So the winner of the first heat of the Bob Jane T-Mart's $200,000 Australian Super Series final, the final here today at Calder, this man, the man who's already won the major prize, Peter Fitzgerald. And we'll be back with more action from Melbourne International Raceway in just a few moments.
Cars are forming up on the grid now for the heat of the Group N, which is the old pre-1964 cars. A bit of nostalgia lurking here with these old kids that have been around for many, many years, going on 20 years now. And we see cars with that particular car of John Mann's dressed up in the old Pete Gagan Team Lotus Team Total colours.
That's the Mustang on pole position, car number 54. You could be forgiven, John, for thinking you'd entered a time warp if you just turned up the telecast now and saw these old cars. But in fact, it's...
It is a historic category.
Takes you back to Bathurst 1964?
Yes.
Well, that's called a 1984. It's a miserable day. Quite a big crowd here. I'm surprised how many people have turned up, because it's the depth of winter here in Melbourne, and it isn't a good day. But we should have some good racing. And there are 24 cars on the grid. John Mann and John Virgo, both in Mustangs on the front row. Mann in 54, the white car in the old Gagan Total Team colours.
Yes, yes.
And 14, John Virgo in the red Mustang. The sole Mini behind is the yellow car number 12 of Lindsay Siebler. Then Tony Hunter and Peter Roach, both in Lotus Cortinas, 16 and 77. Then a Morris Cooper. The driver Warren Tice, Greg Jupp in a Lotus Cortina, that's car 7. Car 73 is Henry Draper, Morris Cooper. Back on the next row, that's right. 64 is Jeff McInnes on an EH Holden. The big Chevy there is
Bel Air Chevrolet, yes, car number 11, yes.
Bruce Combe.
Bruce Combe. It's a big beast.
Yes, have to brush up his driving, little Combe, to hold that car in place. But he was pretty good in an earlier race we saw here today. He really was throwing the tail around. He's a driver worth watching. It's a big, hard car to drive, but most people here seem to be inspired by a sense of fun. They're here because they enjoy it. They'd have to be. There's no prize money. Well, not a great deal. I believe TAA are now behind with the trophy, but essentially they're people who enjoy their motorsport. Two Mustangs on the front row of the grid.
The historic category, in fact, is the fastest growing section of the motor racing sport at the moment, and it's very interesting to see blokes bring cars like this out. They start off with an idea that it is going to be historic and a lot of fun, but I'm afraid once they get in there, their eyes roll back and they're into the competition side of things very, very seriously.
Well, that's the way of the human species, I suppose. But 24 starters. The distance of this race is 6 laps. And the field now on a warm-up lap just to get the engines warm, to get the tyres warm, which is why they're weaving across the track like that. There's nothing wrong with the steering. It's just to put extra load on the rubber and generate some heat so that the tyres are warmer for the start. 10-lap race. Sorry, that's 6. I think it was an earlier race. 10 laps this particular event. Saloon Cars Group N for the TAA trophy. Here they come down the back straight, and it's a recreation, really, of some of the great days of Australian motor racing, where you saw cars like this, the little Mini Cooper, this one, 12, driven by Lindsay Siebler, trying to mix it with cars of an engine capacity 4 times greater than the big Mustangs.
Dressed up in the colours of the old Shell racing team that Peter Manton used to run in.
Tony Hunter, Lotus Cortina, another famed make here with many great drivers. Bob Jane himself drove a Lotus with distinction. Cars now lining up on the grid. John Mann, 54, was fastest in practice yesterday, 59.96, but because of the wet conditions, you can't take too much notice of practice times. There are some aberrations, some rather strange results, but in an earlier race today, in the heat this morning, Mann was very slow off the mark and had to fight his way through eventually to win. What's so car 12, Lindsay Siebler, right behind him in the Mini. He really is sensationally quick, just beaten by sheer capacity, but he's a tigerish driver. And he really likes to get among the big cars in the best spirit of Peter Manton and Brian Foley, the other greats of the Minis. But the 2 Mustangs get away very well this time. So does Tony Hunter on the 3rd row of the grid in the Lotus Cortina. He's made a good start too, but it's side by side, Mann and Virgo. Mann on the inside should get the line. Virgo will have to be content with 2nd spot. He won't be content. That's where he'll be, though. And he's just precocious enough to stick his nose out. And look how Siebler has closed up. Didn't have the pace, did have the daring to leave the braking to the very last moment. Mann in the lead.
Jump's getting fairly serious in the background there too. He had a moment down the other end of the straight, wobbling all over the place with brake lock up. He's managed to hold it in the straight line that time. He's ambitious.
Well, it's car 70, Greg Jupp, and he's come up from 8th position, so he's done very well to be there in 3rd or 4th position. 4th then, he may inherit third from the Mini. Mann in the lead, he'll be happy with that. So it's just like it used to be back in 64. It's Mustang Mini. Mann, Virgo, Siebler, and then behind, from 8th spot on the grid, Greg Jupp up there in the Mustang, and you can expect to see him really fly down the straight where the big V8 will go and maybe will overwhelm the Mini. Mann leads. How fast are these people going compared to the days of the Gagans, John?
The lap times in the dry are somewhere near the mark, but the problem with them, they're only allowed to run a road-going radial tyre, which does tend to slow them down a bit, but certainly performance-wise, engine horsepower and so forth, I'm quite sure they'd be a match for the cars of that particular era.
The Prince, the forerunner of today's Nissan Skyline, a magnificent car in terms of engine, the old Prince, big 6-cylinder overhead cam, but it had some of the cornering characteristics of a 2-story building, so the driver was fighting to hold on line. I hope that all the Prince fans out there will forgive me, but its engine was better than its chassis. I think we can say that safely.
They were very much a car that was, as you were saying, technically they were beautiful with their 3 Weber carburetors, a car per cylinder and so forth, and they were a very, very nicely set up engine, and as you said, handling wise, not quite up to the mark. I think there's a lot been learned since.
Oh yes, the new Skyline's a great car. There's a great battle for 3rd place, talking about great things too. The Mini of Siebler and the Mustang of Greg Jupp are having a great old stoush back there. They're the next lot coming. See them almost side by side? Well, you can see now from the different angle that the Mustang's got by, but the Mini, you can be sure, will close up around the bends. The infield fairly wet from all the rain yesterday, but drying under the influence of this strong wind blowing across the Melbourne International Raceway. A bit of size is probably a handy thing in the wind, and that's just what John Mann has in the Mustang.
I thought you meant him personally.
Look how the Mini's closed up. They're just behind. We'll watch these 2 down the straight, but you keep your eye open for the battle for 3rd place. The Mustang is in front of the little yellow Mini. In fact, the Mini could fit in the boot. In fact, that might be where it is. The Mustang drawing away on the straight.
Certainly the way it used to be in the era. Peter Manton used to give the Mustangs quite a hard time, and I guess it was very good for the Mini fans, but not too good for the Mustang people to have such a little car attacking them so seriously.
Oh, the fans always love the small one. It's a real David Goliath story. Now, Siebler doesn't have the power of the Mustang on the straight. He's running 4th behind the 3 Mustangs, led by John Mann there, 54 going through. John Virgo 2nd, and Greg Jupp is 3rd. But Siebler doing his best to make life difficult for any Mustang he can see. He's more like a terrier than a Mini. If he sees a horse in front, a Mustang, whatever, he likes to nip it on the ankles. The leading 2 are around Glow Weave. And Siebler again has closed, but not enough to do anything about Jupp. Jupp will have the horsepower to pull away again down the main straight. And a nice sort of messy off there by Ken Hurd in the Ford. He's back on again. He's driving an old Fairlane, and he's got more wags in the tail than you find on a windscreen wiper.
It would keep him fairly busy, that car. Unfortunately, they're not allowed to change things like steering ratios, and the steering ratio that you had in the road-going car is the same as what you've got in your race car, and it's very difficult to get from lock to lock in a hurry.
You need two rev counters, one for the engine and one for the steering wheel. John Mann still leads. They've now covered 4 laps. The distance is 10. And if Mann can just hold it all together, he should have this race in his grasp, although certainly Virgo's not letting him get away. He'd be no more than 6 lengths behind at the moment. They've now got some cars to pass. The first one is the Prince of Snedden, car 65. Snedden bravely soldiering on. It's only 1.6 kilometres around, so it's a circuit which is very easy to be lapped.
It's also very, very hard on brakes too, as we know, especially with cars like the Mustangs. John Mann was saying to me a while ago that the car runs out of brakes very quickly, and I said, well, they used to do it in the era too. It's not as if it's something that's developed.
In 10 laps, John?
Yes, in 10 laps. Probably in about 6 laps, they're starting to get into trouble.
Well, they're on their 6 laps, so let's see what happens.
It's not that they don't have any, but what they've got don't work as well as they used to. There's a very bad heat build-up here at Calder because they've got 2 fairly heavy brake applications, one after the other, all in this race of 45-odd seconds, and it's very, very hard to dissipate the heat. And a lot of their stopping is done by flinging the car sideways in the finish.
Oh, talking of flinging, oh, Sieber.
Yes,
There's a Mini. Now, he's had a real biff, as you can see. The car has, Sieber's okay, that's good. At least he's open to getting out. He's all right. The car, though, is what you might call substantially damaged. He's had a spin and a biff, whether it's just the fence or whether another car hit him, but he's hit something very hard. It looks as though he's bounced off the fence, and he was going so hard and so close to other cars. Let's have a look and...
He did go straight off into the tyres, so yes, and he's spun round. I was wondering what those 2 straight lines were into the tyres. Looked like he's had a bit of a lock-up there, just gone straight off.
It looks as though he's come round the previous corner on the S's there, has lost the car, and then under the sort of whip effect that Minis have been known to give, has gone off into the tyre barrier. Thank heavens there were tyres there. That caused the bounce that put him back on track. Bad luck for Lindsay Sieber, who really was driving a great race before then. But when you're little and giving away a lot of power to big cars, you've got to try harder, and you can, I suppose, don't Shepherd, try just too hard.
Yes, well, the risk element goes up when you start getting into that 10 and 11 tenths motoring. The higher the number of tenths you're working at, the higher the risk factor, and it's, as you say, to keep a small car like that up with these big ones, they have to take some risks, and unfortunately they didn't pay off in that case.
As Ken heard in the fair lane, just being passed by the Mustang and probably wishing he had a different sort of Ford. There's another car in front. It's a Chev Bel Air of Bruce Combe. There it is, big, wide Chev Bel Air. And the leader is now about to lap Combe. Let's see if he can get by without a brush.
Just about fills up the full width of the track.
Well, the 2 cars, you wouldn't have much room to take your shopping basket there, would you?
That's for sure.
And look at the way the hands are going on the wheel as Combe is all over the place trying to control the car.
Yes, there's no classic positions there. You don't just dial them quietly. You've got to grab for everything you can when you're dialing up. I forget who made the statement about dialing every phone number in the book, but that's what's happening. 2
laps to go. And did you see the way Combe had time when he was spinning the wheel in a very courteous gesture to put his hand out the window to show the side on which Virgo in second place should overtake him to get the cleanest, fastest line. That's both good skill and good sportsmanship. And if you thought that Mann wasn't trying and maybe wasn't wearing his tyres, see the way he swung the tail out. Maybe a suggestion of tyre wear?
Yes, a little bit of that, and I think he'd be working those tyres pretty hard. They'd be gasping for air at this stage of the game, I would imagine.
And maybe the brake problem. He just hadn't sort of stopping and had to put the car a bit sideways.
I'd say there would be a fair bit of the throw it sideways to slow it down business going on at the moment. Actually, I'm watching with interest. I'm not sure whether the yellow flags are out at the top end of the circuit, but if they are, John Mann will be in trouble for passing that Bel Air Chev where he did, because it's a no-no to pass on the yellow flags, even though the man in front wants you to and so forth. You're just not allowed to do it.
And the yellow flag means what?
It means it should drive with great caution. If there's one out, you've got to be cautious.
And you mustn't overtake.
Yes, you mustn't overtake in a yellow flag area, not just where the flag is. So from one flag point to the next, you're not allowed to overtake.
Well, Mann is now on his last lap. This is the TAA trophy for saloon cars in Group N. Touring cars in the 1964 and earlier era, one of the great eras of Australian motor racing. And as he starts to thread his way through some of the tail-enders or cars who have been struggling in their own private battles, John Mann now has only 2 more corners to go to win this race. And there's been a good drive by him. He's well and truly clear of John Virgo, only a matter of 2 seconds, but that's a sufficient margin to put him across the line first. One more bend. And John Mann will take the checkered flag. He's certainly going hard, even at the very end, but now just down the main straight, he has 200 metres to go. One more Mini to overwhelm on the way to the checkered flag. He gets it, and John Mann wins. John Virgo comes across the line in second spot. And in third place, car number 70, Greg Jupp. So it's all Mustangs. More Mustangs than you'd find in a horse yard.
Big paddock, that's right.
That's the way they finished in this saloon car race for Group N cars here at the Melbourne International Raceway, Calder. More action, the next event on our program, Super Karts. That's right, go-karts. About 1/10 the size of this car, the Mustang, but the same speed. They really do go fast around Calder.
Those blokes really get a sense of speed in those, because as we've been looking at them today, they're sitting probably within about 5 centimetres of the ground and doing 120, 130 mile an hour, and that's very, very quick when you're out in the breeze that close to the ground.
Well, John Mann glad to have won the race. He's been working hard, John Shepherd. Not an easy car to drive. And that's the way they finished in the TAA Trophy. All Mustangs. John Mann in car 54. John Virgo in car 14. Greg Jupp in car 70. More action here at Melbourne in just a few moments. And the sad side of the Melbourne International Raceway, Calder Park, of the Mini of Lindsay Siebler being retrieved from its crash, put an end to a great effort by Siebler, who really was harrying the bigger cars, but just overdid it, it seems, went into the tyre barrier and has suffered fairly heavy damage to the car. He himself is totally unhurt. But it was a victory, of course, for John Mann. So let's go down and talk to him now through Stephen Phillips.
Thank you, Evan. Victory for John Mann and a trifecta for the Mustangs. Great for the nostalgia buffs.
Yes, it's very good. Yes, it's nice to see them, all the Mustangs out there. We had a bit of worry yesterday with the little Mini Cooper, of course. In the rain, he dived off and we're all still sitting on the line.
John, on behalf of TAA, I'd like you to take this very nice silverware and also this bottle of Tolana sparkling brut champagne, and I don't know which one you'll enjoy first.
That's very nice, and I'd like to thank TAA especially, and a special thanks to my son last week. It sounded like Michael Jackson's thanking his mum and dad, but it's my son this week who put a great engine together for us, and the first rebuild after 12 months, and the boys, Milton and Bobby and Wayne, all working on the car, and Ian Tate, which did a fantastic job to get the car here.
How much work do you have to put in on the Mustang?
It's been very, very good. We had a new motor built last year, and we raced it all year until just a few weeks ago, and we pulled the other motor down, and Anthony completely built a new engine for us, and it's going extremely well.
A bit mean on brakes?
A bit hard on brakes, yes.
John, congratulations. A fine drive this afternoon, right from start to the end, and we look forward to seeing more action here in Calder after this break.
Grey skies here at Melbourne International Raceway, Calder, for today's meeting, featuring rounds of the Australian Formula One Championship, Australian GT Championship, and the final of the $200,000 Super Series. But it also has a place for Super Karts. No, they're not driving bedroom slippers. These are potent, high-performance little go-karts. And to help John Shepherd and myself with commentary about what is probably an unfamiliar category of motor racing to many people, Ian Wells. Ian, just explain what sort of karts these are, would you?
Yes, Evan. Well, the karts are running in the road racing category. These are quite different from the normal go-karts which race on a small short circuit. These are fitted with engines and 6-speed gearboxes. They run in 4 classes. The international class is invariably 250cc's and twin cylinder engines. The national class is 250cc's and single cylinder engines. Then they have the 125 class as well as the 80cc class. Now, they're not toys. This is the important thing to make the viewers aware of. These are very, very sophisticated racing machines, and the international karts are capable of speeds of up to 140 mile per hour. They'll be lapping here in the very low 45, 44-second bracket.
McLaughlin made a slow start and had to be pushed in car number 54. Kart number 55 now, Peter O'Driscoll, or Paul O'Driscoll rather, is being forced to retire only a matter of 400 metres from the start. But they are quick cars, and they don't relish the bumps that they're enduring around the S-bends. But how would you like to be travelling as fast as that, so close to the ground? And look at the cornering capabilities of these little machines.
In Europe, these karts are very highly regarded. It's a very close-fought class over there. They have fully supported and works teams. And in fact, just as in open wheel racing, there is a constant tyre battle between the various tyre manufacturers, as there is here today between Dunlop and Goodyear.
Well, Fletcher's opening lap, the Kart 66 leading, was 51.8 seconds, which, just by comparison, was, 8 seconds faster than the Mustang's practice time yesterday. So they're quick little things. That's from a standing start.
Just to put a set of brakes on this kart that's leading here at the present moment is about $1,000. They have beautifully engineered alloy calipers and quite large discs. And they run a variety of wheel sizes, and even in the wet they run fully grooved racing wet weather tyres. And as you can see, they're very, very fast indeed. They'd be putting out in the vicinity of 80 brake horsepower from 250 cc's, which is a phenomenal output.
Not a lot of give in the suspension bolt over there, in the way their cars are shuddering when they come over the bumps. It'd be a fairly rough ride on the drivers.
There's no suspension at all, Gavin. They rely entirely on the tyre flex, the walls flexing to provide the suspension such as it is, and you can see the way the drivers are being jolted around there.
They're relying on the tyre flexion. There isn't any.
That's exactly right. I had a national class, a single 250, and I brought it out here for a run some time ago, and it frightened the daylights out of me. It was so rough and so quick, it was unbelievable.
Well, a number of drivers who these days feature in Grand Prix racing and Formula One made their start in kart racing, so it seems to be a great place for some of the great drivers to really cut their teeth, to gain experience of cut and thrust driving, and to show what sort of potential they have.
Yes, one of the big advantages of the karts, of course, is it's a relatively low-cost formula. These karts are the ultimate, the Formula Ones of road racing go-karts, and this kart leading would probably cost in the vicinity of $8,000 to put on the track, somewhere between $6,000 and $8,000. But of course, you can start off very much lower than that.
Yes, we've got one having bounced his way out of contention there on the
76 it is.
Got a big problem figuring out who he is, because he doesn't feature on our list, unfortunately. No, he's been going very well, and I've been trying to figure out for a few laps who he was, but he's incognito today.
Well, he's in the grass at the moment, so we'll have to leave him there, I'm afraid. It must be something of a frustration, though, Ian, for people who are serious about their motor racing and have such good equipment, to be regarded sometimes almost with a wry smile of amusement when they turn up at a motor race with such a small device.
Yes, it is quite irritating because, believe me, until you've driven one of these things, you can't imagine just how much effort and stress is involved in it. And a top-line driver of one of these vehicles could more than hold his own with some of our top-line open-wheel drivers. And in fact, our current Formula 2 champion, Peter Glover, was an Australian kart champion, and in fact went to Europe as a fully sponsored driver for the Demonson Works in England a couple of years ago.
The drivers then, the leaders after 4 laps: Fletcher in 66, Wood in 81, Fonteo in 38, Gray in 6, Dewar in 21, and Lawson in 42. They're the top 6.
As I mentioned earlier, there are 4 classes running in this event. That's why there's so many karts on the circuit. We start off with the 80cc karts, which is generally considered to be the beginner's class, and in fact it's very rare that a license will be given to a novice to step into one of the big 250s, because they're a pretty hairy device. So one would start off in the 80cc class, which has a top speed of a little over 100 mile an hour. Then they would probably go up to the 125cc class, which has a top speed of about 110 to 120 mile per hour. The next class, of course, is the national class, which is for single-cylinder 250cc karts, and they have a maximum speed of close to 130. And as I said earlier, the ultimate is the 250 Internationals with twin-cylinder motors, very, very sophisticated exhaust systems, anything up to 6, 7-speed gearboxes, and capable on speeds of up to 140 miles an hour.
Girls can drive quite successfully too. In fact, Barbara Hepworth from South Australia from Team Cassini is in a Zip, powered by the Rotax engine, the British engine. She's got kart number 39.
Yes, girls generally star at kart racing, particularly the sprint karts. We don't see too many of them in the road racing category, but girls seem to have an affinity for the sprint karts, and they in fact do very, very well and very competitive.
I suppose weight would be an important factor in such a small machine.
It is indeed, although generally the kart and driver is weighed, and if necessary the kart is ballasted up to meet a minimum weight.
Some are tiny devices, seeing a few of them going there, but watching the leader again, still 66. Fletcher still leading, but some of the little ones, I presume they're the 80cc. They've got no body work or no aerodynamic work around them. You can see he's trying to pass another kart there, which went on the outside.
Car 90 coming in. Yeah, that's Zevrin.
I see a lot of these look like they're water-cooled then.
Yes, in fact, they are, John. The 125, well, the 125s, 250s are invariably water-cooled. They're generally Yamahas. They seem to be the dominant make at the present moment, although the English Rotax is now coming into the force, and that's a specialist-built racing engine. A lot of these karts, the drivers own, or the owners buy a motorcycle just to get the engine out of it. They put the brand new bike into the garage against the wall, and at the end of the year, you take the engine out the car, put it back in the bike, and so on.
Pretty handy if you bought the bike, isn't it?
A lot of people watching must be saying, it looks a lot of fun, but what happens if I hit something? Is it a dangerous sport?
No, it's surprisingly few injuries involved in kart racing. You'll notice that all of them are wearing full motorcycle leathers. They must wear ankle length or ankle covering boots. Of course, they wear crash helmets, and generally speaking, while they can and do have some monumental shunts.
But wait, we're just about to see a change of leader. I think we've got Wood now with only a lap to go, challenging 66. He's been leading all the time, Fletcher, and 81 Wood having a real go to get by him there. So there's a great scrap going on for the lead here at the moment.
It's going to be a run to the flag. Both international karts, of course, are 250 twins.
And John Wood, Victorian driver, Rally Motors entry, really has made up a lot of ground to get so close to Fletcher in the closing stages of the race. But the checkered flag is coming up. And I think Fletcher has enough distance. Wood trying desperately hard, but it had to be content with second spot. And it's Fletcher then who wins from Wood. And that was a great effort by Wood to close up so much in those closing laps.
Yes, part of the fun, of course, is that it is generally very, very close racing.
So it's Fletcher, winner in kart number 66. From Wood in 81, Gray in 6 is third, Fonteo in 38 is fourth, Lawson in 42 is fifth, and Dewar in 21 is sixth. Race time 7 minutes 53.57 seconds, and that's fast around Calder. How would you like to sit on almost? How many centimetres from the ground did we decide? About 5?
I reckon about 5, yeah, and that's too close, I think.
I think 160 in one of these would feel like about 380. Left arm raised in salute to the flag marshals and to the plaudits of the crowd from Fletcher, who won the event. All Yamaha-powered little zips. Fletcher, Wood, Gray. They're the placings in the karts. Bigger cars in a moment when we return to Melbourne International Raceway. Welcome back to Calder, or Melbourne International Raceway, as we know it these days, for the... It's a good day, as you can see, and you don't have to be enthusiastic to come out here. That's not a tent, they're people. And they're people, and hopefully they're all enjoying themselves, because there's some good racing going on here today. But it is cold. Let's not deny the fact that when Calder is wet, it becomes colder. A good crowd here today. They've dropped their prices to try and attract people here to this depths of winter meeting, and it seems to have been repaid by a remarkably big crowd for such bleak conditions.
Another innovative move from the Bob Jane group, I think.
Yeah, car 66, Kevin Bartlett. As the wind still blows across the track, he made fastest time among this group. This is the second heat in the Australian Super Series, the $200,000 series for standard production cars. And Kevin Bartlett would have been delighted with the fact that he was so fast in practice yesterday that he will today start from pole position in this second 10-lap heat. He's running, of course, the Mitsubishi Starion, the type of car that dominated. Kevin runs for Rally Art, which is the Mitsubishi-supported group that, in effect, supports motor racing and is the motor sporting arm of Mitsubishi in this country. A good move, and certainly a good man in Kevin Bartlett to have leading the fray and managing it for them. Alongside him, another Mitsubishi, but a Cordia, a smaller vehicle from the Japanese stable, John Phillips, the driver, and I think a few of the drivers are looking to next year when they put these smaller Mitsubishis in, and the Cordias have done so well. There is a 20-lap final, by the way, later in the day, and that's when it really counts. That's when the prize money is paid and the points are given. This is just to determine starting positions virtually for the final, but it's still a very important event for them. Phillips alongside then. So 2 Mitsubishis, a big one and a little one. And on the second row, a couple of interesting cars. Ian Burrell in the Cordia 55, the almost psychedelic or Technicolor car, and alongside him and partly obscured by the start-finish line, one of the great men of Australian motor racing, Colin Bond, in the factory-supported Alfetta. Colin would love to finish the season, not as winner of the series because he can't do that, but as the winner of this race, and you can expect a great effort. Well, I'll throw it down to Stephen on the starting line with Kevin Bartlett, because he looks like he's freezing to death.
Kev, is it that cold?
Oh, it's not too bad in here, mate.
No, you should try it out here. The Mitsubishi's having a field day. I suppose this heat, you'd like things to continue that way.
Well, I look around, it's wall-to-wall Mitsubishi. Cordias as well as Sarians.
They'd be very pleased.
Oh, happy indeed, yeah, sure.
Well, we hope to have a chat to you a little later in the afternoon.
Great, I hope so too.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Evan.
Thank you, Stephen. Kevin Bartlett, of course, won Bathurst way back, 1974 with John Goss. 10 years ago, he'd like to score up another notable victory here today. On the third row of the grid, we have the Falcon of Peter Dane and the BMW of Bruce Linton, so other makes have to be content with being a bit further back. Gary Walden, the Mazda RX-7, Lyndon Arnell in a Starion, Mark Pickett in a Fairmont. Back there, that's Mark's car. Alongside him, Ken Price in the Cordia. Barry Jones making a welcome return to the motor racing scene in the Starion. Peter Granger in a Cordia. Ross Burbage as they go off in the warm-up lap in an Alpha Sud, a small car giving away a lot of size. Phil Alexander in the Lacer, who has done best of the small car drivers in the series, amassing more points in his category. Joe Beninka, one of the sensations of this class of racing, particularly in some of his Sydney performances, in an Alpha Sud. Alan Fender in a Starion. Mark Gibbs in the Commodore, and from the back of the grid, through not having recorded a practice time, Jim Finico in the Starion. Worth watching, car 60, because Finico has won these events. He was disqualified having won one once, but at least he's got the form to be out front, so you can expect the Starion driver Jim Finico from the tail of the field to go very quickly. Colin Bond going through in the beautiful Alfetta GT. That's Bruce Linton in the BMW.
The Cordias have made a sensational entry, Evan. They haven't been around terribly long, and I think the feeling was that they had a lot of development work to do, but obviously yesterday's wet practice was a big help to them.
They're quick cars. They give away 200 cc's to the Starion, but of course they're much lighter. They are a very high-performing car. Mitsubishi certainly are going the turbocharged path. They're not the biggest turbocharging company in Japan. Nissan has that honour. They build more turbos than anyone else, but Mitsubishi seem totally devoted to it, and I suspect you'll see turbos in any car that they make in a few years' time.
I'm told by someone who claims to know such things that they make more turbocharger units themselves than anyone else in Japan, which I can neither confirm nor deny, but it sounds good.
Well, they're a big engineering company and they might sell them to the others. OK, 10 laps is the distance of this race. It's the Heat 2 of the Bob Jane T-Marts Australian Super Series. Kevin Bartlett in car 66 in the Starion on pole position. One of the most popular as well as most talented drivers in Australia. Car 49, John Phillips, much less well known in the Cordia alongside him. Colin Bond behind. Watch Colin in car 7. Oh, Kevin Bartlett had a poor start. Colin Bond made a great start if he can just get by Phillips. The Phillips is blocking his path a little bit. Colin trying to force away on the outside, can't do it. He's going for the inside now. He's trying to be the ham in the sandwich. He's got the line. If he can just squeeze Phillips out, he can't do it, but he's in second spot. Kevin Bartlett back there in third. There are a lot of cars leaning on each other, and Colin Bond was leaned on, and Colin forced that wide, controlled it beautifully. He's starting though from the tail of the field, and Kevin Bartlett forced terribly wide there. That's Phillips who's gone through on the inside. There are cars everywhere. The track's a certain width. The cars are sprayed across a much wider section of Calder. And it's Phillips who will lead. What a sensational start. Colin Bond now, who was muscled out right at the back. Kevin Bartlett got up there to be in contention. He's gone to the lead now. And it's Mitsubishi side by side right after him. It'll be Bartlett who'll be through first.
Quite serious.
That's a Starion off as well. That's the BF Goodrich sign on the back suggests that it's Barry Jones.
I was going to make the comment about racing for sheep stations, but the amount of prize money in this series there virtually are. And it certainly made them a lot more serious about winning.
Kevin Bartlett has the lead. The field fanning across the track. Someone's going to visit the grass here. I've never seen such wide lines taken. A lot of foxing going on. Right at the back of the field, 88, Mark Pickett, who got caught up in that incident that put Colin Bond off the track. A lot of cars lost a lot of time, but Kevin Bartlett, who was outgunned at the start and was third into the first bend, came out in the lead, and that's where he is at the moment, and he doesn't want to surrender that position.
He's in a fairly handsome lead for such a short time, and I think the way he's looking, he's going to remain unchallenged from the look of things at the moment.
Colin Bond has recovered from being last after that first bend shove to being 12th. Now that means he's up more more than, one-third of the way through the field on his way back. There are cars going everywhere there. On the grass today is not the fast run. Here's Colin Bond just coming out passing the Falcon. Down the straight. The Falcon should be as quick as he, but Colin hasn't wound up a bit more, and away he goes. And the glorious Works Alfetta. Well, Bond's got a lot of cars to get by. That's him there, and he's got it's wall-to-wall cars in front of him, which is going to make it terribly hard for Colin Bond. And up in front, Kevin Bartlett will be smiling from one end of the crash out to another. Bond is now 10th. He's picked up 2 more places. You can just see the nose, the striped nose in the back there as we follow Kevin Bartlett through the bends.
Big thing in Kevin's favour at the moment. Anyone that wants to attack him has got to jump over 2 or 3 cars behind him. And he's
well, they're going everywhere. That's Gary Walden in the Mazda RX-7. Once you get onto the grass and the mud, you've got to slow down because there is absolutely no grip out there. So you must stay on the track. It's one thing to be quick, but just put 1 tyre on the outside and that's it. You're in trouble. Well, that was a magnificent recovery by Colin Bond when he got pushed up and spun. He went right round, decided to go the whole way and brought it back in the right direction. That's him out there on the inner line, picking up cars as he goes, and Colin Bond is making a magnificent race of this. Pushed into last place at the start of the heat. He knows that this heat will determine the starting order for the final, and he wants to be up towards the front when the race starts. He probably can't win it. He's up to 6th place, picked off another 4 cars on that lap. It's a 10-lap race. They've covered 3 laps. So Bond is in with a chance of a major placing. A sensational drive by him. Car 14 going through there. At the moment is Peter Dane in the Falcon. It's a big car here. It's Bartlett from Dane. He's up in 2nd place.
He's doing very well, even. Not very often we see the Falcons in these positions. He's obviously learned something, and a lot of these people have been allowed to use limited slip diffs, and I'm not quite sure whether the Falcon is one of them, but it's whatever the reason, all of a sudden he's become competitive.
He's up into 2nd spot, which is certainly the best ever by a Falcon in this series. Kevin Bartlett first, then Peter Dane 2nd. Ian Burrell, I think, is in next place in McCordia, car 55. Then car 49 is next, which is John Phillips, who started from the front row of the grid. He's back there in 4th place. And then in 5th spot, it's car number 44, which is Lyndon Arnell in the Starion, and then Colin Bond. You might see the striped nose of the Alpha pull out there and try and pass a car or two. You can see him coming in the group. Now he's got a bit of a way to go to catch up with Phillips. This is Bond. Here's Bond. He'll be up in 5th place now. He's knocked off 1 more car. That's just sensational driving. Agree, John Shepard?
Yes, he's a master of the art, as you were making the point before, Evan. He drives in all different categories of racing and usually is highly successful in all of them. He's one of our top competitors.
Well, bear in mind, he was pushed off on that first corner in a chaotic scramble. Not Colin's fault. The car started to spin. He had the sense to let go the whole way to the full 360. Got it back in the right direction. Got back in the traffic. He was at the tail of the field, didn't lose his composure, and just set about whittling down in the field. This is a superb drive by Colin Bond. Head bent forward so characteristically, right up on the tails of these cars. There's a Cordia there. Phillips, he says, OK, I'll get you on the way down here. There are a couple of Cordias there. Ian Burrell there as well. And Colin's waiting for the braking. He'll try and go on the inside of the less experienced John Phillips. In the meantime, anyway, he's no room there because they're going sideways. Yes, he's got him just on the inside of the front. He says, thank you, I'm here. Just give me the line if you don't mind. Phillips says, if you want it, you'll have to take it. Colin takes it, and still in the front, Kevin Bartlett, having the occasional glance in his rear vision mirror to see what's going on. That's how they are after lap 5. They have another 5 laps to go, so at the halfway mark, that's how they are. Dane still coming 2nd in the Falcon, which is a great effort. And then Mitsubishi, and Alfa Romeo.
I think, Evan, that's the sort of thing you see with a bloke like Colin Bond. If they have an incident like that, they regain their composure straight away. There's none of this business of taking 10 laps to get smoothed out.
Up into 3rd place too, John. He's now in 3rd spot, having just demoted the 2 Cordias of Phillips and Burrell. They're trying hard to keep with him, but Bond's underway, and off he goes now. The 2nd place is in sight. It's the big Falcon of Peter Dane. He says, right, you're a long way away, but I've got myself another 3.5, 4 laps, and I can do it. The 2 Cordias hanging on tight. They're driving well. They are desperately close to each other. Look at them swing out there. That's Phillips and Burrell having a great old battle for Cordias. Bond is, in fact, 5.2 seconds behind the leader, Kevin Bartlett. I don't think it's possible he can make up that sort of ground. He'll have a real battle to pick up the 2nd car just inside there. Dane in the Falcon. Bond is after him in the Alpha. How would he have done if he hadn't been involved in that first lap spin?
He's got a very badly mud-spattered windscreen too, Cole, which I suppose was a product of being slithering around out in the dirt there.
You can see it there, yes. Colin, of course, has rallied so long, he probably feels at home.
Yeah, I think he probably enjoyed it out there. If it hadn't been a race, he would have thought that was terrific.
4.8 seconds. He's made up 4/10ths of a second on Kevin Bartlett in the lead. Not quite enough to take back the lead, but maybe enough to pick up second spot. Here's the man he has to get, Peter Dane in the Falcon, but Dane's going very well. And Bond will have to be smooth and fast. Can't afford to put a wheel on the wrong line. He's just nibbling away at 10ths of a second now, trying to pick up second spot. He needs a good position in this race to get a high place on the grid for the start of the 20-lap final. Dane goes a little wide. Bond doesn't go so wide. The Cordia coming behind goes pretty wide, as you can see, as Phillips puts the wheel well out. 2 laps to go. Well, Bond certainly picking up on Dane. Does he have enough race left to really overhaul this man for second spot? Bond reckoned he has. He's got about 1.5 laps to go. He's got to catch him, then he's got to get by him. European Alpha versus Australian Falcon, both great cars in their own right. There goes the Japanese turbocharged Mitsubishi of Kevin Bartlett. He should have the race in his grasp. The car's good enough. Kevin is certainly good enough to ensure that he retains the lead. The real battle in is for second spot. Peter Dane doing marvels in the big Falcon, holding on to second place, but he's got Colin Bond behind, and there isn't a better driver in Australia, so he's got a great man trying to catch him. About equal in pace down the straight. A lot will depend on braking. They're the leading 3, so it's not much of a race, as you can see, with 1 lap to go. Kevin Bartlett pulling out to overtake one of the smaller cars. Here's the battle for second spot. This is the last lap. I think it's going to be too much for Colin Bond. Kevin Bartlett just squeezing by Phil Alexander in the Lacer that is leading the category for small cars in this event. There's our leader.
There's very little in that second to third gap at the moment too, which is interesting. As you say, there's only half a lap to go, so whether Bond can pull something out of the hat.
I don't think he can. Let's wait and see. Here comes Alexander. We're following the leader through, but it's very close to second spot between Bond and Dane. Alexander just being lapped by them. Kevin Bartlett, though, now it has the checkered flag virtually inside the man with it. Here comes the battle. Bond is coming right on the tail. We'll watch them, I think, as the picture broadens out. I don't think Bond can do it, but gee, he's going to go close.
Nothing in it, but that's a very good finishing place for a Falcon. We haven't seen him finish that high in one of these races before, in my recollection.
Kevin Bartlett, then, not exactly from start to finish winner, but he led from the first corner on. Second place, and a great second place, to Peter Dane in the Falcon, and a magnificent third to Colin Bond. Squeezed out on the first corner, put back to the rear of the field, got up to a very close third place. Well, plenty of excitement in the Bob Jane Team Arts Australian Super Series Heat 2, and there's a 20-lap final to come, and Australian Formula 1 cars as well. They're the placings. Bartlett in the Starion Turbo, Dane in the Falcon, Bond in the Alpha GTV. More action in a moment. The site of Australian Formula 1 cars, Formula Mondiale, the World Formula weaving across the track, indicates that the next event is for the 3rd round of the Australian Formula 1 Championship, and a critical one of that. It's for the Dunlop Trophy, but it's also very important in terms of points for this year's Australian title holder. The man who's held it for the last 4 years in succession, Melbourne's Alfie Costanzo, is trailing at the moment. He won the first event and seemed to set himself on the course of taking out the title again, but in the second round at Lakeside, he broke a drive shaft on the start line and had to give best that day to John Bowe. Now, John, the Tasmanian driver, is in pole position and leads the point score. That's the way things are at the moment. Bruce Connolly, who's been something of a sensation in the series, is up there in second spot and also is on the second row of the grid. And Alfie Costanzo back in 3rd place. Won the first round, nothing in the second round. Would like to get the points today to stay in contention with John Bowe and Bruce Connolly. So a most important race for the Victorian driver. But also there he is. He's driving the older Tiger, T-I-G-A, built in England by the Australian Tim Schenken and the New Zealander Howden Ganley, hence the T-I-G-A from Tim and Ganley. He's driving the older one, but alongside him is his teammate, entered by Porsche Australia, Lucio Cesario, in the newer Tiger 83. Now, let's run through the field for you. Peter McCrow in car number 25, back there further in the field. And there he is, Peter McCrow in the green machine. 22, you can see in the background there, is Peter Hopwood in a Ralt. Alongside him in car 8, Graham Watson. who imports Rolts and is driving the Rolt, which is fairly appropriate. Rolt, by the way, made by Ron Tornak, the Australian in Britain, who's now the largest manufacturer of racing cars in the world. 83, Peter Lana in a Wren. 13, Steve Swain in a Hardman, built by Alfie Costanzo's mechanic. 44 is Peter Warren in a March. 9 is Chris Hocking in a Rolt, another RT4, the latest from Ron Tornak. Car 3, Charles Talbot in his own car. 2 is Graham Blee in a Cheetah. 5 is Mark Potter in an Elfin. And 6, Brian Sampson. Brian didn't practice, so he in car 6 is almost certain to start from the rear of the grid. Car 13, Steve Swain, has been pushed into the pit area.
Yes, he's in the spot of bother. Also, Evan, Alfie, in fact, because he damaged the other Tiger, will be in a Relt this time out. It's his own car. Not Alfie, I'm sorry, Lucio Cesario. I think my brains all crossed up.
Oh, I see. Righto.
Sorry about that.
All right, the warm-up lap, though. So Alfie in the Tiger and Lucio Cesario in his own Rolls, not in the new Tiger. Okay. The leading 2 cars again, John Bow in the Roll. What a great thing it would be if he could take out the championship. Probably the unluckiest, really talented driver in the country. That's him in car number 4. Really has for so long given promise of developing into our latest top single-seat driver, but it seems to run into misfortune more than most. He's determined this year to try and hang on to points. He's had some trouble in practice, though. He's gone through 2 engines in the Roll. He's now on his 3rd, which is down about 15 horsepower, so it can't be very confident, John Bow. His tactic surely will be just to try and drive to the finish and maybe not even to win, although I'm sure John, being a very competitive fellow, would love to do it. But he's got his eyes set on the championship and the points, and even a 2nd spot would certainly keep him in front and be a pretty good result for him. Bruce Connolly in car 51, the red car just behind him, just going past. 30-year-old driver from Sydney in this category of cars for the first time. And some of the cars taking 2 warm-up laps, which is interesting. Some of them terribly confused, including John Bow, who was about to stop, but Alfie had gone flashing by in car 1, the Tiger. He decided he wanted 2 to warm things up and get some real heat on this chillingly cold day into the tyres. So they're doing 2 warm-up laps. The total distance of this race is 30 laps. Formula Mondial used to be called Formula Pacific. There's a Formula Atlantic on that part of the world, and to link them together they call it Formula Mondial. There was an idea to have a world championship. It seems to have foundered a little bit.
Yes, I was thinking that the other night. It started off as a great idea in theory when it all was about to get underway, but it's, as you say, it seems to have foundered a little bit. Some countries it's still going very well. It's alive and well here, obviously.
Yes, it's strong here, but not so much in Europe, where motorsport is centred. The administration of it worldwide is in Paris, and it's not a strong category over there, so it's
likely to cause its demise if it's not strong over there, as you say.
Yes. So. But this is our premier category of motor racing, and cars are now forming up on the grid. Again, car 4, John Bow. Alongside him, 51, Bruce Connolly, both in Rolts. Alfie Costanzo behind Connolly.
Bit of blatant advertising for advertising there.
Yes, he needs a bit of support. The two Porsche Australia cars. 1, Alfie Costanzo. 30, Lucio Cesario. The 10-second sign has been given. This is the Dunlop Trophy for Australian Formula 1 Championship. 30 laps, 16 cars starting, and it's a good start by many, including Alfie Costanzo, who's weaved his way to the outside to try and pick up 2nd spot. Can't do it, has to be content with 3rd. Connolly goes to the lead, but Bow doesn't quite give him the room that Connolly would have wanted, but Connolly's still in front. It's Connolly from Bow. Alfie Costanzo making the move on the outside as they go down the back straight. Costanzo moves into 2nd spot, going for the first, diving inside under Connolly, doesn't quite make it, but Connolly knows he's got a race on his hands. Alfie is sticking out there, now he'll make a move to try and pass on the inside, and Alfredo Costanzo already has shown that he wants to be in the lead from the start. Connolly, though, from Costanzo, then Bow. Cesario up there in 4th spot.
Well, it would appear that the lack of horsepower in the Bow car is beginning to show up already too. He's sort of jumped away from this leading pair. Not quite on the pace, but look, I think he may pick up as the race settles down to a pattern.
It would seem that Connolly has slightly the more power, leading, gets out of the corners very well. But it's Costanzo who goes around the bends a bit faster. He's very quick through the corners. If he can just get in front, it gives the impression he might be able to open up a little bit of a gap over Connolly. 48 seconds, 48.6, the time for the standing start. Almost the same as in practice yesterday when the conditions were so wet, which shows you just how conditions have changed since practice. Connolly was quick round there.
Pretty quick indeed. He seems to be, he's a man that just sort of popped up onto the scene. No one had heard of him in this particular category long ago because he's just arrived on the scene, and it's interesting he's managing to hold his own there. Alfie's having a bit of a struggle there to keep things straight.
Alfie does close up a little bit on this bend, swinging around Valvoline. Alfredo Costanzo has won the Australian title 4 years in succession, achieving the feat of the great Bibb Stillwell, who did it 20 years ago. Many people said, well, that can't be done again. It was just a freak. A lot of bumps there of the car still now. But Alfie has done it 4 times in a row. He'd love to do it 5 times. There we lost Peter McCrow, car 25. He started from 5th spot in the grid on the Cheetah. He's off. He's being helped out. There's been a touch of some sort. People are concerned about it. It's not just retiring. Something has happened for the marshals to show such concern. And Costanzo making a violent manoeuvre to the outside to try and get a better line. Connolly breaks hard, goes a bit wide. That was all that Alfie was looking for, but Connolly recovered and came back to take the proper line and squirts hard out of the corner. Hand up to indicate he's in the marshal flag, slowing them down. That's where we lost McCrow. That's where the incident happened. The flags are out. There may be another car there. 42.8 seconds the time for the last lap, so there's 6 seconds under their best practice times yesterday. It looks like it was just McCrow involved in that incident that put him out. It was a solo mishap. The leader is still untouched. Connolly. Cesario again trying another line. I don't think it'll do him much good, but he may get a better line on the way out. He's hoping that Connolly will take a wide line and just open the road for him. John Bowe, though, maybe running in this replacement motor, is closing a little bit. And he is very close in car 4. 30 laps the distance, 25 to go. Cesario tries on the outside and gets forced out wide for his troubles. He just was touched on the tire. There's a spin. John Bowe will be cursing because he was pushed off then. He made a move on the inside. And another car, the one that was involved.
That's Cesario in the other car.
Yes, was Cesario touched. He might get bogged. That's the trouble. He's going the wrong way. They're both caught up in the dust. And John Bowe, I think, is out of the race. He is bogged. He cannot get it started. He's rolling backwards. Cesario also, the other one in that incident where they touched and went off wide. There was a move there. What happened was Alfie Costanzo went wide and was pushed. He went beside Connolly. The tyres touched and Alfie went out. Let's watch it again. Now, Alfie had been pushed out. Now, watch what happens. He breaks hard because he's on a dreadful line, and in trying to miss him, you'll see the spin under provocation. Cesario has hit Bowe under the back. Not Cesario's fault. He was very close. Bowe had to slow because the car in front was sliding. Alfie Costanzo, and they're both off. Here's another angle. Now, bang, there's the biff at the back, and they both go off. Bowe is bogged in the mud. He controls it nicely. Cesario spinning as well. They both get off. Cesario gets out of the bog and gets across the track. Bowe is into the pits, though. He's got it going again. His front is deranged, but at the moment he is in the pits. And it'll be a furious John Bowe. And a flat tyre as well.
Yes, I'd say that would be a result of the spin. Certainly the car is the bodywork is actually touching on the ground now, which tends to happen when tyres go flat.
That's the flat tyre. There's not a great haste to change it because they know that he's lost so much time that he can't win the race anyhow.
They'd be flat out getting the jack under it probably, which is another problem with these cars with flat tyres. And you see Alfie's got himself into the lead, which is what he was trying to do, obviously.
Alf's in the lead now. So after 6.5 laps, Alfredo Costanzo has got to the front of Bruce Connolly, who's led the race for the first, 1/5 of his distance. Now, can Alfie stay there?
There'll be some more drama lurking here again with Lucio Cesario. There was similar sorts of problems. A lot of these other drivers complain about Lucio because he drives what they consider to be a little bit over the odds, but he's a competitor and works hard. John Bowe's just left the pits and back into the race.
Yes, we had Stephen Phillips down there monitoring the action, and they changed their tyre and went out there. John Bowe, he'll be furious with that. He got hit from the back. It wasn't really Cesario's fault. He was very close. He's entitled to be. He was trying to pass. It wasn't Bowe's fault either. It wasn't Alfie's fault. Another car off. We've got cars everywhere. Car number 2 is Graham Blee in the Cheetah. And if you spin today and get on the grass, it's so wet that even if the car is sound, if you haven't got traction, you're not back in the race. Well, as you can see, a lot of locking of brakes. Another car involved. I don't think there was a touch, but he had a spin under heavy braking. Has gone off the track, and some of the marshals trying to push him back on, but he says, not till I'm ready, please. In the meantime, it's Alfie Costanzo under fairly heavy attack from Bruce Connolly, who led for the first 6 laps. And while Alfie is quicker on some parts of the circuit, there's no doubt that Connolly is equally as fast elsewhere. Alfie wriggles the tail there as he brakes. That's where he got into trouble before, and it was that trouble where he got touched and pushed wide, which precipitated the clash between Bow and Cesario, which has put both of them virtually out of contention.
See the front of Cesario's car is deranged still. It'll be slow. I'd say the aerodynamics won't be the best on that.
No, the fin across the front gives down thrust to the front wheels, which affects both the streamlining of the car, the ultimate speed, and more important, the steering. It applies down thrust to the front wheels. One reason, I suspect, why he's having so much trouble as he brakes. Lucio Cesario back in the race. He's lost a lot of time when he got stuck in the mud. He got out again, and he's going. His nose went under John Bow's car, so we'll just watch him as he comes around and see if there's any sign of damage to the fins there. In the meantime, you can see how the fin on the front of the Tiger of Alfie Costanzo is bent across the car, and that will be affecting the down thrust, applying an uneven amount of force to the right compared to the left front wheel. You can see it there very clearly. There's Cesario. How far back is he? Let me just check with Nigel Greenway, our lap scorer. He's back there in 6th spot.
There we see the front of Cesario's car. It's very badly smashed, as we can see. The wings dragging on the ground, which they will have lost probably half of its downforce with that the way it is, which makes it understeer quite badly going into corners. Your ability to enter a corner quickly is gone when you don't have any downforce on the front wheels.
Well, both of Alan Hamilton's Porsche Australia entries, Alfie Costanzo and Lucio Cesario, have got bleeding noses, as you might say. But it hasn't stopped the drivers pressing on hard, particularly as it not had a great deal of effect on Alfie Costanzo. He's in the lead. He's lost 2 of his greatest rivals, John Bow. John's still in the race, but a long way back. Lucio Cesario, his teammate, but a rival. He's also back in the race, but in 6th spot. The man that was leading for so long, Bruce Connolly, now dropping back. I think it's just the fact that once the road was clear, from Alfie's point of view, he was able to go a little faster and open up a lead in this, the 3rd round of the Australian Formula One race. More action in a moment. Alfie Costanzo still leading the Dunlop Trophy on round 15. This is the 3rd round, lap 15, rather the 3rd round of the Australian Formula One Championship.
He's got nearly a 9-second lead, which is a pretty comfy position to be in, as I was saying before.
A lead over car number 51, Bruce Connolly, in a Rolt. That's his teammate, Lucio Cesario, that he's just passing there. That's quite a desperate bit of manoeuvring by Alfie to lap his teammate. Here's the man running second, Bruce Connolly, and a great battle going on just behind him. In fact, he's in quite some peril of losing his 2nd spot. Peter Hopwood, the versatile Peter Hopwood, and Graham Watson, both in Rolts right behind. Peter Hopwood's in car 22, the blue Rolt, the man who's driven everything from Lotus sports cars to big Chevy Bel Airs or whatever they are, the 1964 type Chevrolet V8, a man who just loves his motor racing, and when he's given the chance to drive a real racing car like this, shows just what a talented driver he is. He's a film cameraman by profession. Graham Watson, who's chasing him, is the importer of Rolt cars, so even if Graham comes home 4th, he won't be too unhappy, as the man just in front of him is one of his customers.
Be a good little race developing between these 3 when they all get together, and they seem like they're going to fairly soon.
Yes, Bruce Connolly, I think, inexorably falling back into their grasp. That's the way they're running after 15 laps, half distance, in this 3rd round of the Australian Formula One Championship. Alfie Costanzo in the Tiger, then Bruce Connolly in a Rolt, Hopwood in a Rolt, Watson in a Rolt, Peter Lana and Lucio Cesario, having made up some ground there in 6th spot, but lapped by the leader, his teammate in the Porsche Australia team, Alfredo Costanzo. There's Alfie, still struggling to overcome the uneven handling characteristics of his car since the nose cam got damaged in that tip that saw John Bow put off the track, saw Lucio Cesario put off the track, and Alf put out of alignment, but he's in the lead. He won the 1st round in the Australian Championship, but only at Adelaide, only just ahead of John Bow, 1 car length ahead. You can't get much closer than that. In the 2nd round at Lakeside, on the starting line, a drive shaft broke, and Alfie had to sit there and watch the field go away, as well as all points. And John Bow, this man, won the 2nd round at Lakeside, came here with a 15-point total in the Australian Championship against the 10 of Bruce Connolly and the 9 of Alf Costanzo and the 7 of Peter Hopwood. So Alfie needs another 9 points, which will give him 18. And if John Bowe can't get up into the points, if he can't get up into 6th place, he's going to be running in 2nd spot in the Australian Championship. So let's see what develops. Maybe 3rd, even if Bruce Connolly can hang on to 2nd. But Connolly is under a lot of challenge from other drivers. Alfie now going through a rather difficult phase of the race, John Shepherd, where he has to overtake slower cars, and that often is quite hazardous and time-consuming.
Yes, it's, as you say, it's a sort of area where you can very easily get balked or even run into someone who thinks they're doing the right thing by changing line to do you a favour. In fact, at the moment, Alfie is circulating about a 1.5 seconds off the lap record, which is probably the sort of pace you would expect him to be doing at the moment, but that's so easy to change. As you're saying, you come up on a group of cars who are having their own private race, and the flag marshals wave the blue flag, which is to indicate that they're about to be overtaken, and they suspect that it's for the cars that are actually racing with them, and they don't get out of the way, which is, there's a classic example of it there, Chas Talbot.
Well, that's what all that's done, of course, is Chas Talbot had to finally pull over and let them through, is let Peter Hopper get right on the tail of Connolly, and also right up there with him is Graham Watson. So the three of them now nose to tail, which is great for us, not so good for Connolly. And John Bowe behind them, having lost that time in the pits. I suspect he's got another lap to go, but Bowe overhauling this pair as well. And whether he's a lap behind or not, he's in there to make a real scrap. So in a lap or so we'll have 4 cars, and there's John Bowe right behind in the yellow one, closing up with them. Chris Leach, his long-time sponsor, the Lucky Nuts man, supporting him again. Look at the line taken there by Peter Hopwood trying to get through, but that's not quite good enough. It's a very quick line in, and he must have gone close to wedging his nose under the wheels of Connolly's car there.
It's the quicker line, but unfortunately, if the bloke in front's going slower, it doesn't really help you having the quicker line. You've just got to suffer it out, like happened then.
A cool driver in front can determine which way you have to go, and Connolly is cool, and he said, no, that line will do me. You can go as wide as you like. I'm going to stick to the line through the corner. Connolly has, in fact, opened up a slight lead in the last lap.
These blokes having their own private car up will slow them down a little bit from attacking Connolly.
Particularly with the fact that John Bowe is there behind him. He was the quickest man in practice. That's him in the yellow car. It's a bit hard to follow, isn't it? They brake like a Japanese fan.
As you said, Bowe is very anxious to unlap himself, because I'm sure he realises while he's in there he can still win it. I know it's a very difficult thing for him to do, but if he can unlap himself and get going, you never know what may happen. Although I suspect he's probably down 2 laps. I would imagine it would have taken longer than 1 lap.
Well, surely this will put him 1 lap behind Lee's group if he can get by.
It's like the boy pushing the barrow, as they say. He's got his work in front of him.
Well, he's got most of the fast cars in the race just in front of him. Only the leader still clear, Alfie Costanzo. Now, can Bowe get by Peter Hopwood in car 22 down the long straight? Bear in mind, Bowe has his 3rd engine for the meeting, and it's down on horsepower by 15, but he gets by, brakes a little late. So that's Peter Hopwood disposed of. Now he has Graham Watson, who got by Hopwood there.
Yeah, Bowe's in 7th position, 2 laps down, or it'll be, well, 2 laps on some of them and 1 on some others, but certainly 2 laps down on Alfie.
Yes, and there's Lucio Cesario in 6th spot, who'll be his next target. Bowe driving very hard and very fast, very determined. The most unlucky driver, as you mentioned before, and he put into trouble in not his own fault, hit from behind. Again, not the fault of the man who hit him. It wasn't Cesario's fault. It was all precipitated by an accident that took place 2 cars in front, which a car went wide, and there was all sorts of dodging, and 2 of the fast runners delayed quite substantially. Well, Graham Watson still maintains his position just in front of John Bowe. Bowe determinedly trying to nibble his way past. Just lacks that little extra punch from his motor as he comes out of the corner and sees Watson pull away from him again. Watson, in the meantime, putting a very strong challenge on Bruce Connolly for 2nd spot. And Bowe moving up on the inside.
This is where you see people who are bits of thinkers get into doing things. Sometimes you'd see a fellow let John Bowe past in the hope that he would take him past Connolly, because obviously at the moment Bowe is charging very, very, very seriously, and if he could tack onto his tail, it might have to drag him past the man in front.
Alfredo Costanzo is the man right in front. Almost half a lap is the extent of his lead over his pursuers. Bruce Connolly, Peter Hopwood and Graham Watson, with John Bowe in there, a lap behind this group. Or 2 laps behind, trying to do his best to make it only 1 lap. 4 laps to go, so we're in the closing phase of the race, and this is the position after 25 laps. You can see the readout. Costanza in front. It's a 16-second margin, but very close with Watson, Hopwood, Peter Lana, who's next, Lucio Cesario, then John Bow in seventh spot. Bow would love to get up there, at least get a point to add to his 15-point total. Bow trying everything except going over the top. That's Graham Watson in front, who's running in third spot, so he's up with a fast driver. Look at Bow nodding his head forward, urging himself on. If he had a whip, he'd have it out as well. He goes wide there. Car number 44 gone wide, Peter Warren in the march. I hope he stays there because the field's going by. He's now just moving on. 3 laps to go, the leader. And 3 laps for John Bow to get by this group and try and pick up on Lucio Cesario and get 1 point out of this meeting. Imagine the thoughts going through his head when when he was leading the championship, was in pole position, had trouble in practice, but reasonably might have expected to either win the race or come close. There's the go, and they've just touched there. Now, can they? That was close. Bruce Connolly was the one who was touched. I thought he was going to be speared by Graham Watson's car. It was so close, so close. Well, now Connolly has slipped back. That's good news from John Bow's point of view, because if Connolly had finished second, he'd have moved up to 16 points, be 1 ahead of Bow. Let's just watch it again and look as they move over. Now, under braking, it was Connolly himself who moved across as he lost the car a little bit under very severe braking, spun. Look how did Watson miss him? He missed him, and Connolly went out wide, held it all together, has got back in the race, but he's dropped back, what, 2 positions, maybe 3, 2 positions. John Bow is a lap behind still, or 2 laps behind him. And Bow making a move on Watson. Watson won't give him the room there. Bow has to come in from the outside. That's a hard way round, but he's trying to hold on there for a clean attack on this next corner. Well, how Watson didn't spear Connolly, I don't know. That's Connolly's car in the distance, though, I think, so he hasn't lost too much room. 1 lap to go for the leader. There he goes now across the line as John Bow on the other side of the circuit is still mounting his attack on Graham Watson. Even if Watson let him by, he'd still finish ahead of him. But with less than a lap to go now, Bow doesn't want to be 2 laps behind this man.
I think the attitude is, if you want to pass me, you can do it the hard way.
He's gone, and Watson went very wide then, and he's let Peter Hopwood through as well. He braked so late to try, and he spun around. I hope no one's coming around the corner. We can't see. The marshals are waving their flags furiously. And Watson, who was running up there in second spot, is now way back. There's Connolly gone by, so Connolly now moves up 1 in the point score. Connolly should be up in about 4th place, I think. It's getting very confusing. The one thing we're certain of is this man has won the race. It's Alfredo Costanzo, and he'll be delighted with that result. Takes him up to 18 points and the lead in the quest for this year's Australian Formula 1 title. We're looking now for the second man to come across the line. John Bow gets the checkered flag, but he's still way behind them because if he spits off for a tyres, it'll be 22. Peter Hopwood, who'll be in second spot. That's him going through in the blue car. Third place, car number 51, Bruce Connolly, who recovered largely because of Graham Watson's last lap spin. And it'll be Watson in 4th place in car number 8. Well, all sorts of things happening there. We just had a glimpse as Alfie comes round again of Lucio Cesario's damaged nose cone on his own private rot. The car that started from the second row of the grid did a bit of shoveling to put John Bow off the circuit, but finished to take 1 point in 6th spot. And the way they're finished is this man in 1st place. Now 2 wins out of 3 starts in the 1984 Australia Formula 1 Drivers' Championship. Peter Hopwood will come second to him in car number 22. There'll be Bruce Connolly in car 51, Graham Watson in car number 8, Peter Lana in next spot, and then it will be Luciano Cesario. Those are the leading 3, but that's the man who won. Alfredo Costanzo, the delighted Italian-Australian driver from Melbourne. A great victory for Alfie Costanzo. More action in a moment. Welcome back to Melbourne International Raceway, Calder Park. And as a result of his win in the 3rd round of the Australian Formula 1 Championship, Alfie Costanzo now leads the quest for this year's title with 18 points in front of John Bow, who has 15. But let's go to Stephen Phillips for the prize-giving presentation.
Thank you very much, Evan, and Alfie, congratulations. I think everyone here adores seeing you win, and you did it with such style this afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you.
And you're back on top.
Well, to be honest with you, I don't even know exactly where I'm standing now. But if I may extend my little speech, I'd like to dedicate the trophy when I get it to 2 special persons. one a little bit more special than the other. One is my wife, whose birthday is today. I said, I never had time to buy you a present, but I'll try and win the race for you. And the other one is my boss, also it's his birthday today.
Alfie, let's get David Hills in from Dunlop to make the presentation.
Thanks very much, Stephen. Well, on behalf of Dunlop Tyres, it is our pleasure to present Alfie, a very popular winner here at Calder always, with this trophy, Alfie, and all our very best to you. Hold on to the bottom.
Thank you very much, David. I'd like to congratulate Dunlop for putting this event for us. There's somebody that I want to really thank from the bottom of my heart, all the mechanics that worked on my car. As you probably, most of you know, I had a little crash yesterday in practice, and I worked all night to get my car for today's race. They did a fantastic job, as you already seen. So thank you very much to everyone, and thank you very much, Jimmy Hartman, and all the boys in the team. Thank you.
Thank you, Alfie, and we'll be back with more racing in Calder in just a moment.
The next race, the GT Championship, Hume's Guardrail, the sponsors. This is the point score in the Australian title after 2 rounds. Alan Grice has won them both, and he's got 60 points. Mark Trenouth there in second spot. But in practice yesterday, it was Grice who was quickest again in the Chevy Monza, car number 4, just coming up to his position at pole now. And alongside him, Brian Thompson in, of all things, a Mercedes-Benz. And Thompson has had trouble, by the way, during practice. He's blown a turbocharger. The engine develops 800 horsepower. That's Thompson. It's a Chev V8 that sits almost alongside him. It's got turbos. He blew one. He's replaced it. So we'll just see how he goes in the race. In the meantime, let's go to the man who was fastest in practice and who leads the series, Alan Grice. We go over to Stephen Phillips.
Alan, there are a couple of mean-looking machines here.
Yeah, there's a lot of power. I guess there's probably 1,500 horsepower on the front row.
Yeah, I tell you what, we were just commenting they're the 2 meanest-looking machines we've ever seen.
Let's hope they just behave themselves for 25 laps.
Thanks, Alan.
Thank you, Stephen. Yes, mean machines, all right. What's that, 750 horsepower apiece, or 800 for Thompson, and only a miserable 700 for Alan Grice in the Chevy Monza. A great view. He's trying to attract the attention of someone. Is it Brian Thompson? Thompson he's doing everything except throwing rocks at him.
It's interesting, Thompson's car seemed to be blowing a bit of steam there before, or smoke, and they have, as we're aware, been in all sorts of trouble changing turbochargers and so forth because it blew one. And in fact, if Thompson's car doesn't go well now, he plans to leap out of his car and jump into Tino Leo's car, which he practiced in yesterday.
Leo in a Monaro back to 9th spot on the grid.
So we could have a little bit of pre-race drama here, which could be all very exciting, even before the flag drops.
There's the field with the siren having gone. The row has to be cleared. They are mean machines. The Australian GT Championship, Hume's Guardrail Cup, round 3. Grice has won both of them in this car, the American Chevy Monza. Very heavily modified, both in power and in streamlining, to give it down thrust. A deep nose dam across the front to keep the nose down. There are 16 starters in the race, by the way. A big airfoil across the back to put power down those wide back wheels. Look at them. You could roll a tennis court with that. And Alan Grice, fresh from a great drive at Le Mans in the 24-hour race, where he drove with a team of British veterans who have a great reputation there. And Alan drove better than both of them. In fact, the Australians who went there have added to the lustre of our reputation as racing drivers, despite the fact that some had misfortune, Brock, Perkins, Jones and Shupin. Their performances were such, along with that of Rusty French and Alan Grice, to make the overseas drivers say, hey, you've got other drivers apart from Jack Brabham and Alan Jones, and we certainly have. And that looks as though Thompson will be driving Tino Leo's car.
I think you can bet on it.
I think that's a fair assumption, that the turbo has blown. They had trouble with that particular turbo unit in practice, but when the other one blew up, they put the suspect one back again, and I think it has confirmed their worst suspicions. I just hope, though, that it's not laying oil around the track. Thompson is in a hurry to get back so he can get into another car.
Certainly
those behind him,
nothing else.
Those behind him will be wishing that he wasn't there.
Yes, they'll be lost.
probably be a huge collision in the big smoke screen he's laid down. Although with the wind here, Evan, it's not staying on the track very long.
No, it's not Ash Wednesday, it's Brian Thompson. He will go straight into the pits if he gets that far with his Mercedes. And he will abandon the car there and jump into Tino Leo's car.
I wouldn't imagine there'd be any need for any elaborate signalling. I think Tino Leo may know immediately what's going on because he's whizzing up behind him now and he'll bail out, no doubt.
I think the pit crew know, and I think at Tullamarine Airport they know. They just closed the airport for half an hour till the fog clears. I'm only joking, folks. The planes are still flying, but there was a lot of smoke there. Now, Leo coming in as well in his Monaro, and he says, OK, take my car. Now, what Brian has to do, of course, is get round the track and get to the tail of the field, or he will start from pit lane, which is what he should do. But Leo has to get out. Thompson has to get in and be strapped in place. They're different in size. A very different car to drive. He was to have started from 9th place on the grid.
In fact, the race is going to start. He's classed as facing starters' orders because he's in the pit lane. The race has started. Brian Thompson is still being strapped in.
And there's a stop on the line there. Car 15, Tony Hubbard in the Falcon. Stalled on the line. He's last one away there, although if you watch that pit lane you will see eventually Brian Thompson come out in the Monaro, but he's still being strapped into place, and he'll have to give them something like 3/4 of a lap start when he finally gets going, which is bad news for the man who was running in 3rd place in the Australian Championship. The man who's leading it, though, is the man leading the race. Here out of the pits now with the rest of them 2/3 of the way around goes Brian Thompson. Off he goes. He's in the race. And there's a lot of power in Tino Leo's car, and Brian Thompson knows how to handle it. Remember the way he used to drive that VW device, what, 10 years ago?
Yes, that was an intriguing car, to say the least. And as you say, he used to drive it with great vim and vigour and was up amongst the leaders at the time.
So Brian Thompson giving them more than half a lap start. The others have crossed the start-finish line. He's round on the back straight. It's Alan Grice in the lead. Not a lot in it, though.
No, Bob Jolly's very close to him, which is unusual. I wonder whether Alan might be having a bit of trouble. Sometimes those big tyres on that car take a lot of warming up, so especially on a day like today. It might take him 2 or 3 laps to warm them up, or in fact there may be something else wrong with the car.
Peter Fitzgerald in the Porsche, number 3, is also closing up there. It could be there's Peter's blue car. Peter in for a very busy day because he has to step out of the Porsche and get into the final of the Super Series. That's him in car 3. You've got to be strong, you've got to be versatile, and Peter Fitzgerald certainly is both of those. There he is, right up there in 3rd spot in the Porsche.
I suspect from the way Grice was dialing the wheel then that he may be in a bit of trouble with cold tyres because he seemed to have a very bad understeer into the top of the circuit up there. His hands were twitching and dialing all sorts of numbers. So
Robert Doherty following Peter Fitzgerald, the man we're watching now in 3. He goes right on the inside of Jolly and says, thank you, I'll take 2nd place. Maybe cold tyres affecting a few others because the way Jolly went off, it was a classic case of tyres not being warm. Car 39, that's another Chevy Monza, just
Jeff
wheeling
Monday.
off the track. Jeff Monday decides that Sunday is not his day. That must be the world's biggest fin across the back there.
Yes, they seem to have caught on these big tail fins. It was one of the things that was allowed when this GT category came in. They were allowed to have bigger airfoils on the back and to hang them out the back like that, and it gives them quite a big mechanical advantage in leverage because they are so far back from the wheel line that they it multiplies the downforce of the wing by quite a considerable amount because they've got that mechanical leverage over the wheels.
Alan Grice leading in the Re-Car Chef Monza. Won both of the opening rounds. He'd like to make it 3 in a row. Peter Fitzgerald in 2nd spot in the Porsche. In a real battle going on behind with Doherty and Jolly, Tirana and Commodore. The Chevy Monza is only a small car, but you'd never guess it by all the appurtenances that have been tacked onto it.
It's a mean machine. It looks like a little bit like the Batmobile, I think. Certainly a very strong car, and it was overtaxed, I think, when it was racing with Alan Jones in the Porsche, but I think now that it's back amongst what it was designed to run with, it's quite a competitive car.
25 laps is the distance in this race. Grice started from pole position with Brian Thompson and the Mercedes alongside him. Thompson, of course, couldn't start with the turbo, the replacement turbo on his Mercedes having blown up in the warm-up lap. He's now still making a heroic chase in Tino Leo's Monaro. Started from halfway around the circuit. Or started that far behind the leaders, to be more accurate. And there's the man leading the race. The tyres are warming up now. Not quite the same sawing at the wheel, but Grice still taking it a little bit gently, I think. He's in the front,
yes.
But we might have expected him to be a bit further in front. It's Peter Fitzgerald 2nd in the Porsche, then Robin Doherty in the Tirana, car number 58, 3rd. And Alan Grice almost leisurely there behind the wheel. He just chose a line and stuck to it. Hand didn't move on the wheel all the way around the corner, around Valvoline. The long sweeping right-hander at the end of the main straight. Here they are on the back straight now. General Credit straight. A right-hander, then a left-hander through the S's. The field following through. Fitzgerald, then Doherty, then Jolly. Here's Doherty. What great cars the Tiranas were in Australian motor racing. We now see them continuing in the GT and Sports Sedan series, and this is the leading one, Doherty's Tirana. Well and truly disguised by its aerodynamic devices, but right up there in third place.
Actually, poor old Fitzgerald is going to be, as you said before, Evan, is going to be a bit puffed out by the end of the day, and it would be no mean feat to jump out of a car like the Porsche and hop into the Starion, because their handling characteristics would be tangentially opposite, I would say.
So after 5 laps with 20 to go, it's Grice in front, Fitzgerald, Doherty, Jolly, Burke, John Burke and Tony Hubbard rounding off the top 6. They're starting to thread their way through some of the slower cars now. Only 1.6 kilometres or 1 mile by the old measurement around Calder, so it doesn't take long to start lapping cars.
That car that they just passed, that white Mustang, is the ex-Pete Gagan car from the 1967 era. It's running around as a sports sedan in much gutted condition, but I think he would be wise if only it wasn't so young, in the sense that it's a 67 model. It should be running in the Group N category, I think.
And if you're wondering what's happened to Brian Thompson, the news is that he's still out there, but he is in fact being overtaken by Alan Grice. Grice still behind him, but of course the Tino Leo Monaro isn't as fast a car as the Mercedes that Thompson had to abandon, and he is in fact dropping back, still going quickly but not gaining on the others, and in fact we might expect to see him being lapped before the race is over. There he is.
He's in position 14, which, as I say, is a long way back, and he's not really in the sort of car that he can do much with anyway, in the sense that it's an outright winner. It's certainly a very, very fast car, as you said before.
But you can see the leader. There's the ominous red snout of the Bob Jane Monza with Alan Grice at the wheel, pulling out, and he'd be no more than 200 metres behind the Monaro, which Brian Thompson is driving. Thompson wants points because he's running third in the championship. Alan Grice leads with 60. Mark Trenoeth, who runs up the, I think it's a Jaguar, isn't it? Yes. He qualified back in 16th spot. He's in second place with 49.5. Then Brian Thompson, this man, with 40.5. So he would like to add to it. If he keeps going, he'll pick up some points possibly. John Burke, then with 21. Jeff Barnes with 21 also. Doug Clark on 90. That's not a good place to pull up. It's the Monza that's in trouble. The gap, by the way, between first and second is only 1.48 seconds. You can see them going across the line now as we see Jeff Murphy.
Certainly Fitzgerald is very, very close to Grice, which is a...
Yes, that was Jeff Monday's Monza we saw, but yes, they're certainly closing up on him. Fitzgerald has drawn much closer. 9 laps have gone by. 25 laps is the total distance, so there's plenty of room for them to catch up. And here's Brian Thompson about to be lapped. Pulls out. He's... I was going to say he saw him coming. Maybe he didn't. There wasn't a great deal of space there, but enough for the Chevy Monza to get through. And Thompson has to suffer the humility, not only of abandoning his own car, the humiliation rather, but of being lapped by Alan Grice, a man he reasonably hoped he might have beaten in today's race. And goodness knows, Grice is down a little bit on performance, I think, and if only that Mercedes had been going properly without the blown turbo, goodness knows what Brian Thompson might have done. It's Peter Fitzgerald's chance to try and get by, but he won't get by in the straight because the Monaro is a quick car in a straight line. It's a real feat too, John Shepard, for a driver to step out of his own car into a stranger's car and expect to drive it quickly in a race.
Very, very difficult indeed, Evan. And I think if he'd had 40 or 50 laps in the car, he'd still be hard-pressed to drive it as fast as the owner, unless he was some sort of star, which he is, obviously. But I think you get the point I'm making. It's very difficult to... The characteristics of the two cars would be chalk and cheese, I would imagine. And it says volumes to the man who can even drive it at all at competitive speeds, let alone be up there with the leaders, because it is very, very difficult.
Well, he's running in 14th place. He started a long way behind anyone else, so that's a great effort by Brian Thompson, but maybe not the sort of day in which he's going to go home back up north to Shepparton with a bag full of the points he wanted. Here they are after 10 of the 25 laps in the race. As you can see, only 1.5 seconds is the margin between Alan Grice in this car, the Recar Monza, and Peter Fitzgerald in the Porsche. Jeff Monday, by the way, who we saw in the Monza pulling into the pits, has just gone out again, so he's back in the race. Alan Grice with a 1.5 second margin, maybe a little bit more now over Peter Fitzgerald. Look at the width of those rear tyres. See, reasonable width front tyres, enormously wide rear tyres. The rear engine, all the massive amount of power, but not, of course, the same sort of power that the Chevy Monza has, and also the Porsche is a heavier car.
He's lapping in 44s too, Evan, which is a fair bit below his capacity. So, as you say, for some reason, Grice is in fact going slow. And it might have been very... What may or may not have been, I suppose, it's not all that interesting, but I'm sure Brian Thompson would be saying if only, because obviously there was something wrong with the Monza.
John Burke running back in 6th spot in the Toyota Celica. He also has some points on the board. 21. He's running 4th in the series. 6th in the race. Alan Grice won both rounds. Well on his way to making it 3 in a row. Has been a star of GT and sports sedan racing in various cars. Ran the BMW Turbo for a while. There's John Burke, car number 77. Qualified 7th on the grid. Doesn't have a Toyota engine. This Mark Trenault, I think, alongside. And here's Jeff Munday again for his 2nd visit to the pits. I'm sure he gets on very well with his pit crew, but they'd rather not see him so frequently. Wonder what the trouble is. Maybe we can find out from Stephen Phillips down there in the pit.
All off, Evan.
Under the bonnet, something to do with the engine, apparently, Stephen.
Evan, the fuel injection's playing up. Doesn't look very good at all.
All right. Thanks, Stephen. It looks pretty cold down there. What's it like out on the track?
Very, very cold.
You could do with a bit of fuel injection yourself.
Certainly. We just might have a word with the driver himself.
Yeah, it must be terribly frustrating for Jeff. He's been in the pits twice. He had a spin. If the injection's playing up, he probably had the motor cut out, and you can't control a car going quickly if you've got no power.
Nothing seemed to be going right.
Yeah, we had problems from the very start. We can't get 2nd gear. It's very difficult to get back in the 2nd gear, and I've over-revved it a couple of times. I don't know how much engine damage it's done. We've also stripped the drive on the oil belt, so that finishes us for today.
A lot of work ahead this week.
Yeah, my word. Great.
Thanks. Back to you, Evan.
Thank you very much, Stephen. He's got more troubles than most of us would like, and the race then, in its closing stages, still being led by Alan Grice. We'll come back to see just how he gets on in the final stages of the Humes Guardrail Cup for the 3rd round of the Australian GT Championship here at Calder. And with 18.5 laps covered of round 3 of the Australian GT Championship, it's still Alan Grice in the lead. In 2nd place, as before, the Porsche of Peter Fitzgerald. Then car 15, Tony Hubbard in a Falcon. He's up in the 3rd spot now. And some of the other cars showing that they're just as quick in a straight line virtually, but it's actually around the bends and in braking that Grice and Fitzgerald are scoring, because some of them are very, very fast. You see them going just as quickly on the straight.
Yes, and certainly in this particular category, because you can walk in and buy yourself virtually 600 horsepower in a 350 Chev, and you can go and buy the big wheels and the big tyres. As you said, it's not difficult at all to get straight line speed. It becomes very expensive and very, very difficult to get the sort of sophisticated suspension and engineering that's gone into this Monza here. It looks relatively simple on the outside, but it is a very, very sophisticated car inside.
Talking of sophistication, the car is about to pass is a sophisticated one in its original concept. It's the Jaguar XJS. Mark Trenault is driving it. And one must ask John Shepherd why it is that what are fairly simple cars in their basic form, like the Chevy Monza of America, can be turned into racing cars that will beat other developed racing cars like the Jaguar.
I think one of the things, Evan, that comes into it with our regulations that we have out here is we're allowed to run a 6-litre engine across the board now, but at the time when all these cars were built, cars that came out with a 6-litre engine originally were allowed to run one. So people would have a look through the list and say, OK, well, a Chev Monza, you can run a 6-litre engine. So they'd rush out and buy one, and then they would build a very, very sophisticated racing car under that outside shell, which is really all that is. Practically none of that Chev Monza is the original parts. The original setup where they had to have the original floor pan has gone by the board, and the cars are virtually just a racing car, similar in aspect to what the 956 Porsche is.
And with 5 laps to go, that's the position. Grice in front, 7.96 seconds the margin now back to Peter Fitzgerald. So Grice seems to have this race comfortably in his grasp. Tony Hubbard is up there. A good effort by him. He's worked his way through the field. And the Mustang, the old one you were talking about, is it?
Yes, it's Councillor Bob Gill has retired to the pits. Bob, it's quite funny. Bob's a councillor on Paran Council. And,
he's got a quorum there in the pits,
He's got a quorum, that's right, yes. And, quite a character in Australian motorsport, affectionately or otherwise referred to as Spinner Gill, because he seems to have the odd spin on occasions.
Not a gambler.
Not a gambler, no. I think they're referring to the vehicle itself, not to the coins.
Less than 3 laps to go now. And Alan Grice, the victor in the first 2 rounds of the championship, seems to be well on the way to his 3rd successive victory.
With a bit of luck, Stephen Phillips might be able to get a few words from Bob, because I'm sure they'd be gems.
Had to go into ask him to say, come in, Spinner. I think Gill would know. Alan Grice about to go across the line with only 2 more laps to complete now. There he goes. Gill being pushed away. There's Stephen in position, but I think the council's having a meeting on his own. Yes, Stephen.
We're out of fuel down here. We're going to get some more in and go out for the last lap.
Oh, what frustration. So close to the end of the race and to run out of juice.
Well, at least we got a wave from him, I suppose, which is the start. I think he probably got tired.
Well, let's hope that nothing as disappointing as that happens to Alan Grice. And it's noticeable the way the tyres have warmed up. His hands on the wheel now. A little bit of movement, but once he sets the line, he just holds his hands there and steers it gently through the corners. He's slowing down, surely. He's slowing right down.
Stopping,
he's stopping. With 1 lap to go, the car has stopped. Alan Grice is out of power. Something's happened, Stephen. I don't know whether he's coming into the pits or not. But Alan Grice in trouble, just cruising towards the pits there. He's been leading the race from start to finish. He's covered 23 7/8 laps. He's going to drive up towards the line. I think he's hoping just to pull up and cross the line when the next flag goes. No, he's going on. Into the lead goes Peter Fitzgerald, and Alan Grice will stop just short of the line. He's got trouble. He's going to pull up just short of the line. He's going across the line. What's he doing?
Well, he's tricking himself doing that. Well, I suppose he could be classified as a finisher, but...
yes, it'll make no difference, I suppose, in terms of laps, but...
Yeah.
Alan Grice, what a disappointment. Less than, well, 1 lap to go. Peter Fitzgerald then, what a great day this might be for him. He's gone to the lead. 15, Tony Hubbard is next. Then car number 58 up into 3rd spot. Robin Doherty in the Tirana. He's moved to 3rd now. Jolly has gone, Bob Jolly's gone up into 4th spot. And Trenow and the Jaguar will move up into 5th. So, Peter Fitzgerald can hardly believe his luck. Oh,
here's another one wandering down the straight.
That's Gill.
Gill's running out. He hopes the wind will blow him over the line. Oh, he's going to struggle down by the look of things.
But Peter Fitzgerald has gone there to a surprise victory. 1 lap from the finish, he must have been resigning himself to the fact that 2nd place was as good as he could hope for, and that this man was going to win the race. He's down there with Stephen Phillips now. An upset-looking Alan Grice. What's the story, Stephen?
Fuel pressure. Just lost fuel pressure? Yeah. Geez, it's disappointing. Perfect position was yours in the tape.
Yeah, just lost fuel pressure, which indicates it's run out of gas. It's not picking the fuel up, or it's got maybe a fuel pump malfunction. But in any case, it's lack of petrol for one reason or another.
Geez, I can't imagine what you were thinking as the frustration caught up.
Yeah, I thought of a few words that I hadn't thought of before. Long time.
Thanks very much, Alan. And hopefully we might get you up in our commentary position with Evan a little later on.
Yeah, surely.
Thanks.
Fine.
Back to you, Evan.
Fine, thank you, Stephen. Well, I don't know where we put the knocker on him. We said, let's hope he doesn't have the disappointment of running out of fuel, like your friend, Mr. Gill.
Well, there we go. It's certainly wasn't intentional.
And
so I hope when he's looking at the replay, he doesn't say it was our fault.
Peter Fitzgerald, then, I think he'd be surprised. He'd be delighted. But I'm sure that with a lap and a half to go, he thought, OK, 2nd place isn't bad. At least it'll lift me up in the points a little bit. And not that he's got many in this
No, he doesn't
category.
have any at all. So
No.
he's, now he does have.
And Tony Hubbard with a good 2nd spot, he'll be delighted. He had trouble earlier in the day getting the car right, but a great run for the Falcon driver up into 2nd spot. That's a lot of points for him. Again, so that's the way they finished in a surprise result in the Humes Guardrail Cup for the 3rd round of the Australian GT Championship. Peter Fitzgerald in the Porsche, Tony Hubbard 2nd in the Falcon, and Bob Doherty in the Tirana. That's the way they finished. And the big race in terms of prize money coming up next. Dark clouds still hovering on the horizon here at Melbourne International Raceway, Calder Park, but it hasn't rained, but that persistent cold wind has continued. And I guess one man who really feels cold now is Alan Grice, who's not up on the winners rostrum, but the man there, Peter Fitzgerald, is there, and it's over now to Stephen Phillips.
Thank you, Evan. A race of sensations at start and finish, and Peter Fitzgerald, the eventual winner. I don't think that you would have ever dreamt that with 2 laps to go.
No, you're right. Gracie was obviously taking it easy, and I wouldn't have thought towards the end the handling on the Porsche started to go off, the tyres went off, and I was hanging in there for second towards the end.
Well, Bob Marks from Humes will make a presentation which should warm you up a little tonight.
Thank you.
Yes, Peter, on behalf of Humes Limited, thanks for the great race, and all the best for the rest of the series.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Humes for sponsoring this series, and my sponsor, Stanley Electronics. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll be back with more racing in just a moment. Expected to be between John Bowe and Alfie Costanzo, and John, it didn't quite eventuate that way.
No, I'm afraid not. About the 3rd lap, I think it was, there was a yellow flag, which means, you know, you're supposed to hold station and slow down at the end of the back straight. And the leader at the time was Bruce Connolly, and he slowed, Alfie slowed, and I slowed, and Cesario hit me up the backside, like doing about 30 mile an hour more than I was doing, and spun me around and unfortunately punctured the tyre. So I wasn't overly impressed.
No, I noticed when you came into the pits to change the tyre that the look on your face, I thought at the time, well, I'll have a word, and I thought, no, I won't.
No, I wasn't, you know, it's sort of, yellow flags are there for reasons. It's for a safety thing, and, you know, obviously the guy can't see or wasn't watching or something, but I'm going to lodge a protest against his driving because I think it happens too often, and it's not on as far as I'm concerned. I'm not saying I would have won the race because I probably wouldn't have beaten Alfie on the day, but as it turned out, I finished 7th, which is out of the points, and it's a series over 7 races, so
Can't afford to miss out.
You can't afford to miss any points, and, you know, it's shouldn't happen.
Thanks, John. Thanks for talking with us. Back to you, Evan.
Well, the next race, after those very straightforward words from John Bowe, is the final in the Australian Super Series. As you can see, Peter Fitzgerald can't be beaten. He's got 98 points. He'll be a tired fella. He's just rushed from winning one race and getting the prize to the start of this one. And Brian Sampson, also an Astarian next. Colin Bond, just behind Ross Burbidge there in the Alpha. So you've got a clutch of Japanese cars and the Italian car. Phil Alexander in the Ford Laser on 67 points also by dint of class performances. The car not as fast as the others, of course, but a good effort by him in a class-structured series. Kevin Bartlett, way down the bottom there, and Stephen Brook, who would have been reasonably expected to start one of the favourites for the series. There's the field, a lot of cars, 24 starters on the front row, and this is all based on their performance, their race times in the first 2 laps. Kevin Bartlett on pole position, being 0.02 of a second faster than Peter Fitzgerald, both in Starions. On the second row of the grid, we'll have Brad Jones, also in the Starion, and Brian Sampson, also in, guess what, a turbocharged Mitsubishi Starion. So it's Starion, 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 which sounds like a Japanese stammer. On the next row of the grid, 2 very interesting cars. Peter Dane in the Falcon and Colin Bond in the Alpha GTV. So watch them, particularly watch Colin Bond, who was so sensational in his heat. John Phillips and Des Gibbs will be on the next row, both in Mitsubishi Cordia Turbos, which is a great debut by these smaller turbocharged Mitsubishis. Then Gerard Murphy in the second of the Alpha GTVs. A great effort by Gerard also in his heat to come from a very lowly qualifying position to get up here into a major place. And John Giddings in the first of the Nissans, the 280 ZX. Stephen Brook in the BMW. He's a great driver, but he's had the wrong tyres most of the meetings, I'm told, by his pit crew, and just can't get the power down properly in the BM. Ian Burrell in the Cordia will be alongside him. Then in car 44, Greppel Arnell in a Starion, and John White also in a Starion, which is a car most drivers are choosing for this race these days. Alan Grice will be driving in a Nissan Turbo Exa, so we won't see Alan up here giving any commentary unless he breaks down again or runs out of fuel. Bruce Linton in a BMW and Gary Walden in an RX-7. Gary further back than he would have hoped because he had problems in practice. Mark Pickett in a Fairmont, Ken Price in a Cordia, Barry Jones in a Starion, Ross Burbidge in an Alpha Sud, Gary Cook Alpha Sud, Phil Alexander Laser, Graham Babington Laser. Those are the 24 cars. 10 seconds to go. Colin Bond will be hoping for a good start from the third row of the grid in car 7. Kevin Bartlett knows that Peter Fitzgerald is just sensational way. So here they go. Fitzgerald's good. Bartlett's a little bit quicker, though, and he's just sort of picking up slightly on him. A great amount of smoke coming from one of the stallions there.
That was Brian Sampson. I think he had a little bit of an over-exuberance on the throttle when he was leaving, which doesn't help you a lot.
Well, there must be a touch here. I don't know how they all missed. Fitzgerald was third into the corner and first out. And I don't know who opened the door for it. They'll be cursing it because once he gets in front, he is the hardest driver to pass. Look at Colin Bond up into second spot. Kevin Bartlett back to fifth. Very unhappy. But it's the pal colour, the familiar colour of Peter Fitzgerald out in front. Colin Bond into second spot. Brad Jones up there. I wouldn't like to be trying to cross the road at that point.
Fitzgerald is obviously in a groove, Evan. He's been just stepped out of one race into another, and from that point of view, whilst he may be a bit puffed out, he obviously is in a groove, and it'll be handy for him for that. The fact that he knows where it all goes, he doesn't have to think and figure it all out.
Well, Fitzgerald has won the series. Colin Bond, who hasn't and can't, is up into second spot. He'd dearly like to win the last race. Then Brad Jones, then Brian Sampson, and then Kevin Bartlett. Then it's Mark Pickett, and then it's the second alpha of Gerard Murphy. Those are the leaders at this stage. Colin Bond has made up a bit of ground.
Yes, I think in a groove or not, he's about to attack him if he can get a little bit closer, and good luck to him. Mainly so we can see a race, because that's obviously what it's all about.
When he lapses the distance, Colin Bond lurking in the shadow of Peter Fitzgerald. Colin has made up ground, there's no doubt. He started from the third row of the grid, Fitzgerald on the front. Fitzgerald was led into the corner, the first corner, by two other cars, but got through them both. I don't know how to this day he got through. To this minute, it wasn't that long ago, was it?
Certainly, perhaps a little bit of the fall of the cards, and I often say that it's not just the fact that you're smarter than the other bloke. If the cards happen to fall the right way for you, as it would have appeared happened then, as you said, someone opened the door for him, he said thanks very much, and away he went.
Yes, well, there was a great battle between Brad Jones and Kevin Bartlett for the lead, and I think Brad Jones went a bit wide and took Kevin with him, and it's opened the door, and Peter Fitzgerald said, gee, that's nice, and through he went. And Fitzgerald, who's won more races than anyone in this series, doesn't need to be given the lead. He's hard enough to beat without giving him some sort of advantage like that. He's in front now. Colin Bond still in second spot and about the same station as before, and a whole line of stallions behind him. So it's two factories who are supporting the series with official entries, Mitsubishi and Alfa Romeo, who are leading, although it's not the factory Mitsubishi in front. It's the pal colour private car of Peter Fitzgerald. The factory stallion is, in fact, the Kevin Bartlett car, which started from pole position, but is now back, I think, in about fifth place. That's Kevin.
Well, Fitzgerald is certainly holding down a good lead here, and Colin Bond seems to pick him up a little bit, and then he goes away again. So I would imagine they're both lapping at similar sort of times.
Well, Colin's under a fair challenge from Brad Jones now. It's a circuit that does favour turbocharged cars. Got a long straight, plenty of room to use acceleration. The great forte of the Alfa is its handling and its braking. And it's the turbocharged Japanese cars which have distinguished themselves on the fast straights, and Jones making the move on the outside. He obviously has a little more acceleration, a little more pace than the Alfa, and trying hard to make up with Colin. Colin had a great start and seemed to be able to get the power down a bit better, a bit earlier, but now that the tyres have warmed up on the Japanese cars, I assume they're running on the Yokohama tyres too, which did so well in practice yesterday. That's just suited the wet, cold, slippery conditions. A lot of smoke being
They're certainly
blown
capable of spinning the wheels, those old stallions, and they step in them a bit hard and really smoke the place up a bit, which is not a good way to drive, as you'd understand, because while the wheel is spinning like that, it's not putting its maximum power down.
I think we might have had trouble with Brad Jones. He seemed to slow right down there. Just hard to see in the tail end of that shot, but I saw Brian Sampson going past him. He was running up in third place. Colin Bond in second spot. Certainly he doesn't have the stallion right up his tail. There he goes. Oh no, Brad Jones still there. 25 laps, sorry, 15 laps to go. A 20-lap race. This is the final in the Bob Jane T-Mart's Australian Super Series. A great concept, and I think a very successful series of races too. More prize money than we've seen in the series in this country before, $200,000. The actual prizes themselves, which have only just been announced, are more in goods than in cash, but the winner, Peter Fitzgerald, is going to win for himself an eliminator, which is a good word for a man who's eliminated most of the field. 21-foot day cruiser, designed and built in California, powered by a 455 cubic inch, 390 horsepower, fully marinized Oldsmobile V8 motor. You could do with that now through a Barclay jet drive unit. It's all included on a custom-made trailer. Then TAA Chateau Commodore, 7 days and nights flying TAA the friendly way, and staying at the Chateau Commodore in Perth, so you got a holiday. and a set of Cheviot mag wheels with Dunlop steel radial tyres, and the value of that, $32,000. That's what Peter Fitzgerald is going to win. So he's got a boat, he's got a holiday, and he's got a set of mag wheels.
Certainly it's injected a lot of enthusiasm into the racing scene, Evan, and I think anytime anyone with the, once again, we're talking about the vision of the Bob Jane organisation, you see this sort of thing happen, and it really fires up the enthusiasm and gets the crowds along and really generates the sort of thing that we like to see, and that is some close competitive motor racing.
The series has been run here at Calder, at Adelaide International Raceway, and at Amaroo Park in Sydney. Fitzgerald has dominated. He's won more races than anyone else. Brian Sampson has also won, and they're the only two drivers, both in Starions, who've scored victories, which is one reason why Colin Bond would love to come out at the finish and just put his Alpha in front.
I'm just looking at the field as I went past the front of the tower here, and I see Alan Grice well back in the field, and it's sad or funny, whichever way you look at it, how your fortunes change in this category. When they were given a few little additions that they were allowed to have, and that car of Grice's went from being a leading contender back to sort of probably position 12 or something, which is...
There's the way they're running at the moment after 5 laps, as you can see. Fitzgerald in the Starion, Bond in the Alpha, Sampson in the Starion, Bartlett in the Starion, Jones in the Starion, and Murphy in the Alpha. Alan Grice in car 6. One reason he's back so far is in one of the very small cars in the event. It's the Mitsubishi, I'll say that again. It's the little Nissan Pulsar Turbo. This is the Australian developed car. I've driven them, John. They're a lovely car to drive. Not a race car in their natural way, but turbocharged, 1.5 litres. Oh, Jones is in the pits, so we did say before, yes, maybe he was having some sort of problem, because he did slow just temporarily. And Jones, who was running second at one stage, now in the pits. And that's the end of his chances in this event, of course. The pit crew having a look under the bonnet, something there. And by the way, when they turn a full circle, like a dog about to sit down, you know they've got trouble.
Yes, it's usually, as you say. And they're in the throes of shaking things at the moment, which usually doesn't help a lot either, or it's indicative of not quite knowing what the problem is. Pretty soon we've got our cameras close on the scene down there. I'm sure we'll get a look under the bonnet any minute.
Talk about close. Colin Bond has closed up quite dramatically. Look how close he is now to Peter Fitzgerald. He's moved up, what, 6 car lengths, 7, braking very late.
Serious, that's for sure.
Making a big move now. It's a 20-lap race. They've covered 8. So they have, at this stage, about 11 3/4 to go, and Bond is closer than he's been at any time since that opening lap when he came from the 3rd row to put himself very close behind Fitzgerald.
Even when you see that there, Evan, Colin just locked the brake for a relatively short amount of time, and he was very, very close to him, and he just dropped back maybe 10 or 15 feet, which is...
Let's go down to the pits where Brad Jones is, and again to Stephen Phillips.
Where he was, he's actually left, unfortunately. As we say, we're going down.
Okay.
Brad Jones is just driving
talking
out.
of left, Bruce Linton in the BMW also has left the track. Look at the marks on the side. That's not,
yes,
not a cheap sort of outing for the BMW, is it?
No, that's what we were saying before in earlier races about these cars. They do get a lot of close attention from other competitors.
Well,
oops, there we go.
Take that, he said, and take that again. Ian Burrell in the Cordia. Well, that could have been so much worse. Burrell in the Cordia and Linton in the BMW came together. The BMW is one who spun off. Burrell kept on going. And this is the Graham Babington Lacer. We started from the tail of the field alongside the other Lacer of Phil Alexander, and he's pulled the little Ford-built car into the pits, and he's stepping out, so that looks as though Babington is out of the event. It's a race with different classes, and in fact it's been Phil Alexander in a similar car, another Lacer, who has scored so well in the smaller category. Let's go and see what happened to Graham Babington. Stephen, what's the story?
We've done 6 races, and in the final, that's it.
Just a bit of over-exuberance.
Ah, yes. Youthfully over-exuberance.
Youthful, naturally. They expect you, Evan.
Well, it's nice to see you can still laugh anyway, and I think that's one of the good things about motor racing, that we do tend to see this happen. Blokes will have these misfortunes. You see Alan Grice get out of the car laughing and so forth, and they get philosophical after a while.
Well, let's see whether it's going to be either Peter Fitzgerald or Colin Bond who's laughing when the race is over. We'll be returning to the action in just a moment. Back to Calder, and with 7 laps to go, what a race we've gone. Way on the left-hand side of your screen, that's the leader, Peter Fitzgerald, and look who's behind him, and look how close he is, Colin Bond. And Fitzgerald trying to block him. Bond went on the inside. There was just a shower of fiberglass. He knocked the front of the car. He's been hit. He's going on the inside still. There's an Alpha stood there, but there's a slight change in the appearance of the Alpha there, where he just crumpled the nose a little bit under the tail of the Starin. He's on alongside him, and he's got the line now. He has got the line, and Bond is on the inside, coming towards the bend on the back straight, and Fitzgerald will have to give way here. Does he? No, he's going to hang on. That's a brave line. Colin's forced to go on the grass. He hits wide. Fitzgerald will have the line now because he's pushed Colin out, and they're back like they were before. It's Fitzgerald and Bond. Sensational driving round there.
I'd like to see a bit of close racing, but as you say, even a little bit of touching, provided it's not too bad. Well, Bond's is a bit out of shape there.
Yes, the front is a bit flatter than it was. It hasn't quite got the graceful Italian lines it used to have, but if ever you doubted that Fitzgerald was a bit of a tiger, he certainly showed that he held onto a perilous line around the corner to get back on the right line through it. Now he's going across, and Colin will say, thank you. You have to go there. I'll stay here, and we'll see what happens. It's a quick line, as Fitzgerald shows, but doesn't he go in fast? Locks up a brake as he tries to keep on, locks it again. Colin's come through fast, takes the inside. Side by side, it's touchy once again. But the extra power of the turbo shows initially, but then Bond winds it out, and once again, down they go towards the start of the S's. Now, can Bond get on the line again this time? Will they touch again? Oh, yes, they're going to. Oh, goodness me.
Fitzgerald was actually showing what I was saying before, Evan, down out of that bottom corner there where he's accelerating so hard. It's difficult not to step in the pedal so hard and spin the wheels, but you actually lose by doing it, and it's very difficult to...
He's got sideways. Bond is right inside, just a little touch, but Fitzgerald held it very clever. And he gets out of there quickly. Bond tailing him. He wants the aerodynamic drag, the pull, the extra effect the toe will give him. That Bond, that front of his is bent quite badly. Dented down where he ran into the back of Fitzgerald just before Fitzgerald ran into the side of him. So they've each paid their compliments to the other. They've covered 15 laps. We have a little more than 4.5 to go, and it's sensational motoring here at the front.
Peter Fitzgerald got out of it a lot better than too, Evan, by not spinning the wheel, which is as I say, they lose ground doing that, which is difficult to adjust the throttle to the right amount so you don't do it, but it's, that's the points out the goodies from the baddies, I suppose.
Through the S's again, coming down towards Glowweed. A fast exit from this corner is vital. Fitzgerald will go through quickly. Bond is closing and is coming out a little faster. It'll be in Fitzgerald's interest to slow him down a bit and use the extra blast of the turbo to draw away, but Bond is there quickly, playing their private game as they come up to the line for 4 laps to go when they cross. And if Fitzgerald went any closer to the pits, he'd take the paint off. Bond, who will go for the outside line? Bond knows if he goes there, he'll probably lose out. Bond goes there, though, and has a quick line through. He'll have to brake or he'll hit him. Fitzgerald just slows a little bit. Bond takes to the dirt. He was a rally driver and doesn't mind it out there. And now it's just sheer drag. First the Mitsubishi, then the Alpha score. The Alpha going deep again, side by side. Who will brake later? Will Fitzgerald give? No, he said, I'm going deep of new and I'm going to turn. And if you don't get in my way, I'll hit you. Which is a fair argument. So it's nose to tail again. They've covered 16 3/4 laps in this 20-lap contest. This is the final of the Bob Jane T-Mart's $200,000 Australian Super Series. A lot of smoke from the rear wheel there, or Fitzgerald's car as he applies the power. Bond comes out a bit more cleanly. And the V6 Alpha right on the tail of the turbocharged 4-cylinder Mitsubishi. 2 of the stars of the series. And a fitting finale to what's been a great series of races in Australia. And meantime, just in case you're wondering what's happening back in third spot, it's Brian Sampson, who is half a car length in front of Kevin Bartlett, both in Starions. And they're about 500 metres back from this pair. There they are, and you can see Bartlett now challenging again. It's just like up front, isn't it?
Yes, they're just as serious about those places back there.
Kevin Bartlett going on the outside now and gets by Brian Sampson.
He really jumped past him like something was wrong with Sampson's car,
yes,
didn't he?
It's like a stone out of a slingshot.
Yeah. They've been staging this battle for race long, so I guess they catch a bit here and catch a bit there.
There's some great battles going on in the field. I was just watching Alan Grice in the little Nissan Tulsa, who's going great guns further back. But let's follow the lead with only 2 laps to go as they cross the line, because it's such a great challenge here being flung out by Colin Bond and such a great defensive drive by Peter Fitzgerald. He must be tired. Just won the race before in the Porsche, a long race. Now he's in another long race in a totally different car and still driving like a champion. The champion that he's shown he is. This year his efforts throughout the season have been just outstanding. Now, will he give room for Bond to come on the inside? No, he says, I'll take the inside, Colin. You have a go at the outside. It's not too good out there. But then he decides he doesn't mind it after all.
Either side, that's right.
And goes and has a look at it. Now, what can Colin do about it? Colin bounces his wheel on the inside of the bend. He must wish that the Mitsubishi wasn't there because he was going faster into that corner and had to brake, lost a bit of momentum. Again through this corner. Bond comes out of this very well, but he'll have to slow a little bit because otherwise he'll run into the back of the Mitsubishi, which is very close to opening the boot. Down the straight again. This will be 1 lap to go. 1 lap. The final of this $200,000 series. Could we have a closer finish to it? Fitzgerald and Bond. Bond early on decides he'll go wide. He won't be first into the corner, but he might be first out. It's a fast line. He puts his wheel into the grass, comes through very quickly. Fitzgerald cleverly blocks the line and forces Colin to go wide. He wanted to go on the inside, but he couldn't go there because the pale colour car was there. Look in his rear vision mirror. A couple of cars in front, but they're a long way away. They'll have a clear run to the checkered flag, and Fitzgerald still leads. Bond trying desperately. He's got 2 more corners. 2 more corners. But Fitzgerald is clean through there and fast and just draws away a little bit. That's as much a lead he's had in 5 laps. But Colin might be trying to save up for a really fast exit. He comes through there very fast, has closed up a little bit, but I think it'll be Fitzgerald in the Mitsubishi Starion who'll take the checkered flag. Down the line they come, passing one of the slower laces. Bond is making a last-minute effort, but he'll have to be content with 2nd spot, and it's Peter Fitzgerald, the winner of the series, who wins the final series heat here at Melbourne International Raceway. And that, John Shepherd, was a great finish to a big series.
Yes, excellent racing. That's really what the crowds pay to see. And as I was saying before, the money that's been injected into this, I'm sure, has had something to do with it.
Fitzgerald in the Mitsubishi wins from Bond in the Alfa Romeo. Then Kevin Bartlett in the Mitsubishi Starion just held off Brian Sampson in another Starion. And then it was car number 15 who came home in 5th place. That was Gerard Murphy in an Alfa GTV. So all Mitsubishis and Alfa Romeos in the first 5 places in the final of the $200,000 Bob Jane T-Mart Australian Super Series. We'll be back in just a moment. Fitzgerald, Bond, Bartlett. That's the way they finished in the big one. Well, there's been great racing here at Melbourne International Raceway on a bitterly cold day, and those who've gone to the trouble of rugging themselves up have seen some marvellous entertainment. I bet they'll be glad to get home, and they'll have a real story to tell, because that last race for the final of the Bob Jane T-Mart Australian Super Series was a classic. So let's go over to Stephen Phillips, who's lined up there. Same cast, different play.
Thank you very much, Evan, and a magnificent finish to the series. $200,000 series. With me, I've got Bob Jane, and Bob, I'm going to leave all the prizes to you.
Thank you. Peter, congratulations on a fantastic race. You have showed great skill in a type of racing that a lot of people don't appreciate how hard it is, and I do. I appreciate it, and you've done a great job, and you're, without question, I've heard it set up there in the box today. You're the most improved driver that I've seen in the last year or so, so congratulations. Now, you've had the prize money here. Over here is a 21-foot eliminator. You've got a trip from TAA to Perth with accommodation from, my brain's collapsed, Shadow Commodore, yes. And you've got some great Dunlop tyres here and some Cheviot wheels. And as I said before, a fantastic thing. You've done a lot for this sport. You've been a supporter of production car racing in sports cars and touring cars, and a lot of what you have done in the last few years have led to this race here this year, which I must say, watching on television up there on the monitor, is fantastic racing. Congratulations again. And Colin, you're a dreadful flea. You made a great race too. You know, you're a skillful gentleman and an old experienced driver, and he's really a younger, less experienced driver, so it's really great to see you out there and seeing his skill against yours. And I guess on the day, the turbo's got... The Mitsubishi's a great little car, has proved that. That's true. And you haven't got a turbo, so I reckon you haven't done too bad. Colin, congratulations. 2nd in the race today, but not in the series, unfortunately. Sure. I think you're 4th, aren't you?
That's right, I think so, Bob.
4th in the series. Wonderful. Thank you. Good. And Ross, you're 3rd, aren't you, Ross?
3rd in the series.
3rd in the series. We don't know where our 2nd place getter is. We've lost him. Brian Sampson is 2nd in the series, ladies and gentlemen, and I congratulate him most sincerely. He has won this magnificent 18-foot ski boat. I hope he can water ski. Is he here? Yeah. Okay, well, we'll get him here in a moment. Ross Burbage, congratulations on your fantastic drive. I really congratulate you. Your prize is a set of mag wheels and a set of Dunlop tyres and various other prizes and a trip also. So congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bob. Speaking as truly an amateur, we ran a little alpha suit in the small class. I really appreciate the shot in the arm you gave us by putting on the series. It enabled us to travel all over Australia, and I would also like to thank my team, Eric, Shane, Bob and Judy, for all the help they gave throughout the year and enabled us to come third in the series. Thanks again.
Thank you. Brian Sampson, congratulations on your second place in the series. Great and skillful.
Great, thanks.
There's one of your prizes down there, an 80-foot eliminator, a set of Dunlop Le Mans tyres, and a set of Chevrolet wheels, and a trip with our very good friends at TAA and Shadow Commodore Motels.
Fantastic, Bob.
Okay, you can handle all that, can you?
I think we can do that, okay.
Right, thanks again.
Fantastic series, and thanks to Bob, Jane and Team Arts.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Super drivers, super prizes, a super series. We'll be back with more real great action here at Calder in just a moment.
And drivers on the grid now for the sports sedan final. The face just peering at you was the driver of car number 58, Robin Doherty, fastest man in practice yesterday in his Tirana with a 53.5 seconds, 6/10 faster than Bob Jolly in the Commodore, which is alongside him. There's the field stretching back with the second man, Tony Leo, in 85. A number of cars missing. Tony Hubbard and John Burke are both not there. Jeff Monday's not there. Tino Leo is there, and Mick Monterosso in an Escort back in the field. Other drivers, John Horton in a Mazda, John Chambers in a Gemini, Fred Monday in a Mazda, Cos Monterosso in an Escort, Charlie Milner Tirana, Jeff Groves Escort Turbo, John Pillikers in a Datsun Triple S, Ian Jones in an XU1, Bill Emeny XU1, Greg Jordan another XU1, Bob Gill Mustang. This is the warm-up lap. Bob Gill Mustang, Lou Stoopman in a BMW, of all things. Stephen Smith, an A9X. The distance, 10 laps. The field about as mixed as you can see among the touring car race. John Watson in a Jaguar back there in the field as well. Not the John Watson, I don't think, although he enjoys the John Watson to his friends, but not the former Formula One driver. We'll be having Alan Grice, by the way, with us to assist in commentary. Those of you who saw and heard our Le Mans telecast in June will remember the excellent contribution made by Alan to the telecast there from France. He's now joining us, a disappointed man, having led all but the last lap of the GT Championship round in his Chevy Monza, so we'll get out some comments. Car number 43 is John Chambers, and in case you're wondering what it is, it's a Gemini beneath all that. Very heavily disguised, aren't they, John Shepherd?
Yes, it's fairly difficult to recognise that car as being a Gemini, as you say.
Now, thank you for joining us, Alan Grice. This is for the sports sedan final. You've driven devices like this. In fact, your Chevy Monza isn't that far removed, only maybe a bit more powerful. Difficult cars to drive, this sort of machine?
A little bit difficult, particularly when the day is so cold. It takes a little while to get the tyres cold because, you know, the suspensions should be pretty good, and it takes a while to get some heat into the tyres and get the things to turn in.
It seemed that in the early laps you had just that problem. You seemed to be working much harder at the wheel at the beginning than towards the end.
Yes, it's the suspension on the Monza works very well, and takes a while to get the heat into them.
We only have 5 seconds to go. Robin Tirana, Bob Jolly on the front row. The green light comes on. This is the sports sedan final at Calder Park. And side by side, the two front row men, Robin Doherty in a Tirana, Bob Jolly in a Commodore, go into the first corner, and that's the way they go into the corner. And a good start from Tino Leo, who started 2 rows back in the big Monaro. It's Doherty who goes to the lead in the Tirana. He was quicker in practice yesterday by 6/10 of a second than Jolly. And look at Leo coming up on the inside. He's going to squeeze the Commodore out. He goes into second spot, right behind Doherty. It was Leo who donated his car earlier in the day to the Mercedes driver, Brian
Thompson.
Brian
Yes,
Thompson.
I was just wondering then whether perhaps Brian may still be in the car, but
he's driving like Brian Thompson.
Well, Tino sometimes fires himself up, and to be honest with you, I'm not quite sure whether that's a characteristic position for him or not, but he's certainly going very, very well.
I did notice as I came back through the dummy grid, John, that it was Tino in the car.
Tino?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, well. So he's driving like a demon.
I wasn't aware that Brian Thompson drove in the race, actually.
Yes, what happened was, you wouldn't have seen you were on the pole position, but what happened was the turbo blew up in his Mercedes, and he had a previous arrangement to take over Tino's car. That happened. Going a little wide there, much wider than he would have meant to do, is Ian Jones in XU1. Still, it's Robin Doherty in the Tirana leading Tino Leo in the Monaro. 10 laps is the distance. They've covered 1.5. Car number 2, Mick Monterosso in the Escort, has gone wide there in a rather perilous state in the race. He comes back, forces other traffic to slow down. Oh, here we have Alderman Gill.
We'll have to get, yes. We'll have to get Stephen up there to get some comments from him.
Bob Gill in the Mustang.
Yes, well, I think, Stephen, you should stick your microphone in Gilly's face and have him make some pithy comments for us. I'm sure you'll get some controversial remarks from him. Don't worry if he wants to go out, just stop him.
How much water's in it? How much water's in it?
Nothing in the top
There'll be
tank.
enough. Eh? There'll be enough.
I think we could agree, John Shepard, that he's a very enthusiastic competitor.
Yes, I think if, as he's saying, there's enough water in it, I'm off.
Well, the mechanics say there's none there, and he said there's enough.
Yeah, none's enough, that's right. Yeah. Obviously in big trouble because it's spilt water all over the windscreen because he's got his wipers going, but that doesn't worry Gilly. He's going to get out there and have a finish if he can.
Back at the front of the race, there's a real three-corner battle going on here, isn't there, Alan Grice, with Robin Doherty in the Tirana, just in front of Tino Leo in the Monaro, and Bob Jolly has brought the Commodore back again. This is a real threesome.
And another overtaking manoeuvre there, and he's done it, but Leno's trying to go inside. Actually, I noticed in the braking area that Tino hasn't got any brake lights, so perhaps that's a little fox.
Really? But the message, by the way, we get from Stephen Phillips is that the radiator cap is off the Mustang of Bob Gill, which is why he's losing water. Well, Tino Leo dragging the tail. You say there are no brake lights showing on the back of his car?
No, that's right. They don't seem to be working at all, and maybe it's just an oversight or a malfunction, or maybe he's just making it a little difficult in the braking areas for the other guys. It's been done before.
I couldn't imagine anyone doing a thing like that, Alan.
Well, I know a chap at Bathurst in a two-car team who had a switch for the brake lights on and off.
Well, a change of leadership, I think, as Jolly goes through on the inside, but Doherty's hanging on the outside, and he persists. That's a brave line out there. We saw Peter Fitzgerald keeping abreast of Colin Bond in the last race. It's not the place to go, is there, Alan Grice, as we watch Bob Gill bring the Mustang back in again. Maybe this time he'll get the radiator cap on. But that outside line through the test bench is a very difficult line to follow.
Yes, indeed. At their side-by-side again, this will be good at the braking area. Still, I prefer to have the inside line.
Why do so many go wide on the outside for this bend?
Well, I don't know. It's some people believe that the correct line for that corner is right out wide, but I think it's such a wide entry that it really doesn't matter all that much. These guys are sort of a lot of feinting and shadow boxing going on. I hope they leave it at that.
Yes, well, Robin Doherty is making that Tirana the widest Tirana in the business, isn't he?
Yes.
Not unfairly, he's just putting it in the place where it makes it most difficult to overtake.
Yes, certainly.
Once again, by the way, Bob Gill is in the pits. Let's see if Stephen can get some words from him now.
Bob, not enough to get around?
Not enough, mate. She's well off the gauge. I've had a ripper weekend. Yesterday we ran out of fuel because there was none here, unfortunately. And today we put in 8 gallons, and it just was 2 gallons too short in the last championship race. Today the boys checked the water, and
well, they just said not enough.
Just not enough.
Thanks, Bob.
Well, there we are. I was quite sure we'd get some sort of happy-go-lucky comments from Bob.
He certainly enjoyed. Oh, there's a spin there. There was a touch there, surely, Alan Grice.
Yeah, well, it didn't really. We didn't see it. I think maybe slow motion will turn it up. But,
yeah. Now, has he done damage there? It was a very gentle kiss into the fence, but it's enough, I think, to put Bob Jolly well and truly out of the race. But it seemed that he went wide through someone else's attention.
Yes, looks like the two left-hand wheels got a bit of an angle on them, but they were very drastic stuff. They were side by side down the straight and side by side through the corner at the end of the straight and came out.
Oh no!
He just lost it all by himself, by the way.
Just braking.
I didn't think there was a touch. But...
So he just left his braking to such a desperately late moment that when he did apply the brakes,
Yes,
the way it went.
Sometimes a guy will get himself all steeled up for a desperate late braking manoeuvre, and by doing that he'll become all tense and virtually pull the car off the road.
Now it's up to Tino Leo in the Monaro, who's in a very close second spot. Monterosso and the Escort coming into the pits. It's a busy place down there, Stephen Phillips. Stephen's probably up the far end, trying desperately to get warm, I would think. He could do with a turbocharger himself. What's the story there, Stephen?
I'll ask Mick himself. What's the problem?
I missed the gear and I've over-revved it. So I just turned it off.
You looked anything but happy. I think the face tells the story, Evan.
It does indeed, Stephen. A nice, honest answer. He just over-revved it. Not happy. He's got an expensive job to do. 2 laps to go of the race in its last phases. And it's Leo who's now challenging Doherty. He's made up ground. He's going on the inside.
Quite serious about the whole thing. Whoops.
And in fact...
I think that took Doherty by surprise. And I think he might have thought it was all his little corner until Tino stuck his nose in like that.
I think the overtaken car probably complicated things for everyone too.
Yes, Bill Emeny in the XU1 was there, and he was delighted to get the chance to pass one of the leaders. He's back now behind them and 1 lap behind. But it's Tino Leo about to get the last lap board. He's just about to pass John Watson's Jaguar down the straight.
He's done that well too. He was certainly sitting in third, and it was all happening in front of him, and I think he chose to let that go on for a while. And he's made his mind up and taken the chances as they came, and he's done it well.
It's been a good tactical race by Tino Leo. He's had brake problems. We've seen him smoking the brakes a lot. But now he's got a pretty substantial lead, and I don't think that Doherty can haul it back.
No, he's got it there. That was a very conservative line into the corner. He's looked strong under brakes, actually, all through the race, although he has had the odd lock-up at the front, but the motor car obviously does stop very well.
So Robin Doherty, who for so long dominated this race, looks like he's going to finish in second spot. The checkered flag is ready, and it'll be Tino Leo in the Monaro who gets it. Yes, he wins the Sport Sedan final. Doherty comes across the line in second spot, and in third place, it will be car number 42, car 42, Charlie Milner in a Tirana. Fairway back, but that's the way they finish. Monterosso will be third, Chambers, fourth rather, Chambers fifth, and Jolly will recover to take sixth place. Well, I think that Robin Doherty will be a bit disappointed with that. He would have thought that he was going to win, and he probably thought that the only man likely to challenge him was Bob Jolly. And when Jolly disappeared on that very late braking manoeuvre, lost traction for some reason, he might have thought he had the race in his keeping. But this man, Tino Leo, who surrendered his car...
out the window there, Evan, having a bit of a wave in Doherty's car. I don't quite know what that's all about. See, it's still out.
Yeah.
No, it's on the slowdown lap, that's why. Very observant. I thought it was a replay. What a clever boy.
Yeah, no, the race is over, and they're waving their thanks to the marshals. And it looks, in fact, as though in Doherty's case, he's just having a rest. He seemed a bit tired by the whole effort. It's been a good meeting, Alan Grice. Some good racing today.
Yes, I've seen quite a bit of it, and there has been some good racing. Certainly some incidents in the Mondial cars or the F1 cars. And
but let's just recount then a great win by Alfredo Costanzo in the third round of the Australian Formula One Championship, which takes him to the head of the point score. A very disappointing drive as far as you were concerned, Alan Grice, in the third round of the Australian GT Championship. You had it won, you had 1 lap to go, and you ran out of fuel pressure.
Yes.
We'll just look at the placings of that last race. So a very disappointing day for you.
Yes, they never won until you get that checkered flag. That's been said 100 times before, and it's certainly the case. But 1 lap to go, and we just lost fuel pressure, so that was the end of the story.
That's the way they finished.
Still, there's another
race.
3 to go, another 3 championship races.
Right, and of course in the final of the $200,000 Bob Jane Tiamat Super Series, we saw a magnificent race with victory finally going to Peter Fitzgerald in the Mitsubishi Starion, just ahead of Colin Bond in the Alfa Romeo GTV, and another great battle for third place, which was finally resolved in Kevin Bartlett's favour, just beating Brian Sampson. Brian Sampson came second in the series. Peter Fitzgerald won it, of course, and took home $32,000 worth of prizes as the field just trickled back here at Melbourne International Raceway. Well, John Shepherd, thank you for joining us today. The rain has kept away. It's been a cold day, but some very hot racing.
Yes, it's been really excellent entertainment, I think, and the ones that had those close races, as you say.
Well, Alan Grice, your chances in the GT Championship still fairly strong with 3 more rounds to go?
Yes,